hours for whoever designed these. This was
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting into order. So this is the Rhinefield Advisory Council meeting, and you're going to have to be patient with me because this is my first time chairing in 909 Davis. I don't actually know how to use any of these things. It looks like we have a bigger audience than typical. So if anyone is here for public comment, do we have a list already? Okay, if you have not already signed up for public comment, please feel free to do so up at the dais. We have a form here. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and start calling names. We're going to go ahead and start with Kelly Mack.
Good evening, Kelly Mack, resident of the 6th Ward, owner of Mack's Bike and Goods on Central Street since 2020. As I expressed in May to this committee, I strongly encourage this committee and Northwestern to reconsider any plans to establish an Uber and Lyft pickup zone along the designated city bicycle routes, including Lincoln Street. I ride Lincoln nearly every day and regularly see dozens of people traveling by bicycle. I see people of all ages enjoying the open space at Canal Shores. I see improvements currently underway at the city's Chandler-Newberger Tot Lot. Max recently started hosting all ages and abilities bicycle rides down Lincoln Street, leaving from Leahy Park at this very location. What I do not want to see is Northwestern rideshare pickup zones that bring increased vehicle traffic to this area and puts pedestrians, children, golfers, cyclists, residents at greater risk, especially when open parking lots are available just a few blocks away. In May, I heard this very committee provide 3 other valuable options that NU had yet to consider, including Haven, Middle School, Endeavor, and the Cost Building. I hope to hear tonight updates on all of those options. I reviewed the comment responses from NU that were submitted in lieu of an actual updated transportation management plan. Other items I'm eager to learn more about include the following, mostly all bicycle related, but one general one related to the closure of Central Street. Number 1, where are the bicycle map routes access to the stadiums, parking, and when will those maps be made available? Where will access to bicycle parking for employees be at the stadium? I saw information for shuttles for people driving cars, but not bicycles. And the bicycle valet system didn't mention anything about employees being able to access that. Regarding the bike valet responses NU provided to the city on July 31st. These are my thoughts. I would encourage NU to provide claim checks that are both digital and physical versus their stated ticketless technology to support the residents. There's many reasons why, but I won't take up your time here with my reasonings. No information has been provided yet on how long before the event people can drop off their bicycles and what they can drop off with their bikes. Examples, helmets and locks are often with people's bikes. This is missing an opportunity to encourage the wider community to visit the larger Central Street district and give a nod to the local business community. What an opportunity here to showcase how beautiful our town is by visiting by foot, bicycle, and public transportation. Can something be coordinated with Jim Conrad from NU, who is part of our Central Street SSA board? Part 3 of my wonderings. Has NU considered making a video of using the bicycle valet system for the public to encourage using? I know my social media is currently filled with Instagram videos of the interior of the stadium on a daily basis. It would be great if I could see videos showing examples explaining how offerings like the free bicycle valet service can help encourage the use of it, and it could be done so well like the current social media is of the interior of the stadium. 4, what events qualify for the closure of the on-street parking for Central Street between Poplar and Girard before, during, and after being closed? The East Side Business District was impacted greatly this late spring and early summer by parking restrictions due to the water main work from the city. The clearer and more precise parking restrictions can be for businesses and visitors alike, the better. In the end, should this group move forward with allowing NU to use Lincoln Street as a rideshare pickup zone, consider this as an open invitation to each and every one of you to accompany me on a short bicycle ride between Asbury and Ridge on Lincoln to experience the impact of that decision on your bicycle with me on Friday, October 2nd, 2026. It is going to be a big impact that you are choosing to make. This group can do the work to support NU's stated goals of being among the most bike-friendly college venue in the US. I'm also here to be a partner in that work and have shared that with Dave since being introduced to him in early 2023. Let's make the right call for Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Sam Mack.
How's it going? Thanks, everyone. Sam Mack, fourth generation Evanstonian, fifth generation Evanstonian, Leo Mack here.
Hello, my name is Leo Mack. I live on Central Street. I want to ride my bike to the football game. Please let people ride their bikes on Lincoln Street. Thank you. Adios.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Leo. Fully in support of the stadium. I think it's a great thing for our community. I'm going to back up what Kelly said. Lincoln Street is like already congested there. It's already super scary to ride your bike on, and we ride it every day. There's a reason there's no stopping on one side of that street already and has been for a very long time. So please just consider rideshare pickup in that location would be detrimental to any cycling or and pedestrian for that matter, safety. That's about it. Other than that, enjoy your evening.
Okay, next we have Jim Cahan or Cahan.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this body. I am speaking to you on behalf of the Evanston Environmental Board, and we have submitted comments to the board, to this entity, and so I'm not going to repeat all the items that are in our comments, but I wanted to summarize and bring to your attention certain things. First, we found the plan to be an improvement. Over a 6-page plan, that wasn't a difficult item, but we did find that it was an improvement, and it began to address, at least in a sometimes serious and sometimes we thought perfunctory manner, the requirements under both the MOU and the special use. We found that there were the key concepts that we wanted to, concerns that we wanted to convey to you, was number one, that the document seems to lack a lot of numbers. It talks about establishing baselines. It talks about that it's used carbon-friendly steel, carbon-friendly cement, but there are no numbers to back up a lot of the statements in the construction element, and there are no facts or numbers to back up the LEED's gold certification scoring, which gets to just be 60 points. And we thought there were also a lot of what we thought were questionable claims within that LEED scoring, such as protection of sensitive land areas. The replacement of the old stadium doesn't strike us to be a sensitive land area that's being protected. But there just seemed to be a lack of quantitative information to support a lot of the statements that were made in the document. Second, there were many items that are in the SOU that Northwestern was supposed to include in the sustainability plan and think about, and a large number of them were deemed infeasible, such as restroom electric hand dryers, on-site solar, a whole series of other things, including, as I'll speak in a moment, electric buses. Putting the electric buses off to the side, none of the other things that were deemed infeasible were supported with any rationale for their infeasibility or data or documentation for their infeasibility. They were just said that Northwestern found them infeasible. We really would like to know why they were found infeasible so we could talk about it and figure out if there's some alternatives and way to improve. A good example of that is actually the electric buses. That is one of the things that Northwestern promised that it would do under the various MOUs and other documents. And that promise was made 3 years ago. And it appears that the first effort to really figure out whether electric buses could be provided during the transportation for the stadium during games seems to have been done in the last month or two through the list of calls that are listed in the sustainability report. There doesn't seem to be anything else that talks about looking for or trying to figure out how to address this promise. And I understand that there are not a lot of electric buses to be had, but I do think that there are a lot of options to be had that haven't been explored. Beginning to talk about purchasing of electric buses, coalitions of looking at other institutions that need to have this electric buses for the same area, beginning to look at hybrid buses. If you can't do electric buses, maybe you can do hybrid buses, promises to do some electric buses on some schedule. We don't feel that any discussion of this or any of the other items that you deemed infeasible were adequate or gave enough information and didn't demonstrate a good faith effort to try to comply, and not just comply with the letter, but also with the spirit of the idea of being sustainable. That leads me to also the whole issue of construction. Many of the items that were deemed infeasible because of the existing construction of the building. Solar panels on the overhang cover of the roof was deemed infeasible. And I looked at the comments that you submitted to the city, and your response was that, or the Northwestern's response, excuse me, was that modifications would be too expensive and it was deemed not practical. What wasn't addressed is whether that should have been thought about inside of the actual design. The final things I'd like to point out is that the plan should include a full greenhouse gas inventory, scope 1, 2, and 3. The idea of leaving transportation off in the examination of a plan for a stadium whose only function is to have events that people have to drive to or get there in other manners is really missing the point of what's important in terms of doing an inventory. And the last point is the question of follow-through. It's unclear to us exactly how all these issues are going to be addressed with respect to the panel, with respect to Northwestern, going forward, not only with this report, but moving forward over the years in terms of looking at how Northwestern actually implements a lot of things and what actually happens on the ground in real time. And we would urge some form of regular meetings of this body and Northwestern more than an annual basis, and that really digs in and looks at these issues and have what I would consider some serious negotiations over how we can improve step by step, instead of just saying, this is what we have and it's infeasible. The question is, if you can't do this, what can you do?
All right,
And that's
thank you,
what I'd like
Jim.
to ask.
Appreciate your comments. Next we have Hannah Del Salvo. Oh, okay.
Hi, my name is Hannah DeSalvo. I'm an Evanston resident in the 3rd Ward. I am a bike commuter when I'm able to, a recreational bicyclist. I'm here to talk about the transportation plan B, but I do believe that it does also touch on Northwestern and the city of Evanston's commitments that they might allege to have towards sustainability in our community. I would like to incorporate the comments that I've heard so far from the Mack families, Kelly Mack and Leo as well, most certainly. I am not as prepared as I would like to be. I've only recently found out about this. I am disappointed that Northwestern and Evanston are making these big plans to change infrastructure and modes of transportation, and without actually actively engaging our community. I feel like these things should be, I would like to see more outreach to the community, to ask people who actually live and use these roads every day what they would want to see, because I also would like to I would like to learn more about where Northwestern is getting these ideas from. Why is Lincoln the proposed route? And I would urge Evanston to refuse to give a green light to turning a already dedicated bike route into a rideshare zone when there are other alternatives, especially without showing why that one is superior in any way. That Lincoln corridor is a dedicated by the city of Evanston, my understanding through our transportation plans, the dedicated bike route. And we have very few east-west corridors as it is. Dedicated bike zones should be dependable at all times. They shouldn't be something that exists one way, one day and not another, that impacts anybody who relies on bicycling as their main mode of transportation. So anybody who is potentially low income would be at a loss if they need to get across Evanston and can't do so because suddenly there's cars, it's not safe, and maybe they don't have access to internet. Maybe they can't look up whatever the new map is, whatever. So I would like to know why Lincoln is proposed. I would urge Evanston to not agree to allow Lincoln and our dedicated bike route to turn into a rideshare zone. I would also like to echo the request that any bike valet tickets be in the form of physical tickets as well. I don't think that relying on electronics to secure our property, and for many people their main mode of transportation, is acceptable when we all know that that is subject to hacking, the Wi-Fi. There's so many things that can interfere with electronics that would prohibit people from being able to access their personal property, and very special personal property. If Lincoln were, regardless of where they choose, you all choose to put the rideshare locations, if you're using geofencing, I would like to know when that is enforced. Is it only enforced during the times, during the games or events? What events qualify for this rideshare designation point? And I would like to know, I would like to hear why the alternative locations were not chosen. Because the ones that I've heard, Haven Middle School, Endeavor, there was a third one. I know there's 2 parking lots in Endeavor and a huge empty lot behind it on Ridge. So I'd like to know why those were excluded. That Lincoln corridor is incredibly important to our community. It is the only thing that gets us to the North Branch. It gets people to the courthouse. It gets people to Old Orchard and the Central Street Business District. It is, I think, something that our city has already dedicated itself to, and I'd like to see that dedication continued through a denial of the Northwestern's proposed plan to put a bunch of cars there with people who have no idea what's going on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so that's everyone who signed up for public comment on this forum. Yes, so yeah, go ahead. Oh, it is. I can't read. I'm sorry. Kathleen, come on up.
Hello, everyone. I haven't met any of you, unfortunately. Actually, I have met you. It's been a while. I am, let's see, grandmother came here. My mom was born here. I was born here. My son, Sam Mack, was born here, and his son. And we have been blessed and lucky to have been able to stay in Evanston and live here for as long as we have, grown here, educated here. So lucky. Northwestern has been part of that luck, having had you as a neighbor. But also there's always been divisiveness. My grandmother, as I said, came here, very little money. She was a housekeeper for years. She and my grandfather bought a house. They turned it into a rooming house just after World War II. That house was razed after she passed, and more housing was built on that area. I guess what questions I have just boggle me that the questions that we all are wrestling with, such as parking. Now, parking is notorious in Evanston. Notorious. People don't even come here to shop sometimes because of the parking. I get it. Why now? It's such a late date. It's the stadium is going to open any minute, and we are trying to decide how people are going to get to and from. It doesn't make any sense. As many of the things that Northwestern presents to us, here we live. I don't understand how we got to this point without already having those decisions in place. And, talking about the environment, those things should have already been hashed out and looked at and turned upside down, because this is our world, everybody's world, not just Northwestern. Those are my comments. I hope you take the people that live here, that enjoy the lakefront, enjoy Evanston, and are still blessed to be able to live here, in account, not just the people of Northwestern or the students or the faculty or the people that donate the huge amount of money that is Northwestern's endowment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now I think that we have everyone who signed up for public comment. Yes, going once, going twice. All right, then that concludes public comment. We're going to go ahead and move over to our agenda. Today, we're going to be discussing the security plan, the transportation plan, and the sustainability plan. Dave, are there any consultants here, do we have the transportation and sustainability consultants here today?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So with that in mind, and keeping in mind that we could, if we did have any issues with the security plan, we could maybe address that in a later meeting, and it'd be easier to convene those people. We're going to go ahead and prioritize the sustainability plan and transportation plan. That sound reasonable? Okay, all right, great. And we're going to go ahead and start with the transportation plan. So the way that I thought that we would go ahead and do this is, I can't think of any way better than just people just going ahead and addressing any particular concerns they have and questions that you might have, and just going ahead and addressing those to the sustainability consultant. Does anyone have a better way to conduct the meeting?
I think Dave had a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to all of the individuals that commented, as well as the residents and thereby neighbors, for your engagement. I sincerely feel that your engagement has made the plans better, and that we've tried to operate in a way that we've listened, and we've tried to listen, we try to gather feedback and incorporate many of those into the plan. With that said, our team, we have representation from Oakview Group. We have our new general manager for the stadium. We have Peter Lemon with Kimley Horn, and we have Deputy Chief Chin, who apparently will not be speaking tonight because we just changed the format of our schedule, but that's okay. It's always good to have you on the podium. With that said, we have been in conversations with the city staff. Many of them are here today, some on the podium, on the different aspects of our project, of our plans with the respective departments. And the city has submitted a number of comments. My recommendation to this body is that we kind of walk through those comments that the city has submitted. I know many of the comments is to ensure that our plans are in compliance with the MOU and the related ordinances. And so because they've outlined those in a document that they submitted to this body, as well as us and our consultants, we felt that might be one approach that we can take, is to walk through those comments and questions. And then if there are any other questions from the council and the individuals represented here, we can certainly talk through those.
Okay, so the comments that the city provided, those were already addressed, or you guys had time to address those?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can still talk through those.
Okay, so you think we should just go through step by step? We'll read them out and then see if anyone has any questions or comments about each one.
That's what I would recommend.
All right, sounds good. Okay, then we're gonna go ahead. Does everyone who has a laptop, everybody has a laptop, would you like me to send the document he's referring to, or do you know which one he's talking about? So this is going to be the one that's, oh, are you sure? Okay. This is one called City of Evanston comments. And yeah, I think Dave's asking if we can go ahead and present this on the screen. Yeah. I thought that was who you were talking about, the one you just had. This one?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Do you have it? You want to join the Google Meet?
We could.
Is it not
We
this?
could just have our consultant.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
All right. So I should just share my screen. Luke, you're able to approve that, or I can go ahead and just do that, I guess. Okay. I don't usually use Google Meet, so let me figure this out real quick.
I'm sorry, do you have a complaint about Google Meet? So I'll let you know it's a darn fine product in my opinion.
I'm sure it's great. Teams by default, I guess. Let me see if I think I got it here. Let me see. Okay, I think we're seeing my screen. Yeah, all right. Oh, is it? Yeah, okay, we're good. Okay, let me put these off to the side so I can. Okay. So I've already kind of forwarded to the transportation plan. You want me to just kind of go through each one? Is that a good way to go? Okay. So good evening, everybody. Good to see you all again. So the first one was about rideshare. Maybe I'll take a quick step back. So like we had provided responses to the earlier comments, and there were several sort of like unresolved, or I would say several, but some that we wanted to make sure we kind of talked with staff about first before we just kind of updated the TMP document incrementally without having certain things resolved. So the intention is that once we have these resolved, then we can make like one clean kind of final amendment to the TMP and resubmit that. We did have a meeting, I think it was last week, regarding shuttles with staff, so that was good. And then we talked a little bit about rideshare, and we put together some alternatives that we want to go through with each of you. And hopefully we can come to a resolution on which way we want to go. So one of the ones that we've talked about was Lincoln. And just as if you remember, we were trying to split up rideshare into two different zones, one to the east and one to the west. So the one to the east, we're basically focusing on areas that were, public access. So that's why we were looking at Lincoln. We picked this location because by Leahy Park and south of Chandler Newburger, we weren't adjacent to any homes. Obviously, every option is going to have pros and cons. We've heard the concerns about Lincoln being a designated bike route, completely understandable. So we also then created or looked into an alternative. I think Peggy, you might have brought this up, and others have brought this up. So this is the lot that is, here's just to orient people. Here's Central Street on the north, Ridge on the east, and you can see the purple line here on the west. So we started to lay this out. This would be, and you would have to make arrangements. I believe it's Endeavor that owns the property, but not sure. So I'd have to make arrangements with the property owner to use the lot. What we're showing is the Ubers and Lyfts would come in off of Ridge, circulate around. The gates there's gates, parking access control gates that would need to be open. So they can come in here, circulate in this sort of counterclockwise fashion. These zones would be available for riders to wait. Okay, so it would be geofenced. And just if you haven't kind of checked out in the TMP the way we outlined it, it's sort of like a dual geofence. So rather than, if you go on the app as you're leaving the venue and you start walking towards, you would have two options to select for where you can pick up a rideshare vehicle or ride-hail vehicle. So if you selected the eastern one, okay, you start working this way. The drivers have a call. They know that there's a call to this location. You're not matched yet until you enter a more tight geofence that is like right around this lot. So then it sort of functions, you get matched with your driver right then, so that we don't have drivers sitting around waiting, for people who are still maybe at the venue and so forth. They get matched with someone once they enter the tighter geofence. So it functions a little more like a taxi stand in a way, so that you don't have vehicles sitting around for a long time. And people who are waiting has a driver that's like a mile or two away. You get matched, and then that way they're going through much quicker. So the idea would be to use this parking area for pedestrian waiting, as well as along this area. They can pick up along these zones and then continue circulating their way out. If we had additional queuing that was needed, you'd be able to circulate through this portion of the lot on the south and then come up this way. In terms of pedestrian access, so the access to this route would be like if one was going to the Central Street Purple Line stop. There's a couple different options. One is they can go through the Chandler Newberger lot, and then there is sort of a pass through underneath the tracks. It could use some improvements in terms of lighting and signage and things like that if this was to be the direction, and cleaned up, because people are basically walking kind of through this alley section here behind the parking garage. You could also go along the east side of the CTA station here as well, or continue walking east along the sidewalk till you get to Ridge, and then come down, and there's the parking lot is sort of like sunk down. So this is a walkway right down to where the loading or the passenger loading zone would be. So another alternative, if we like this one, this could be the direction to go. We just need to make arrangements to be able to have access and use that property. So maybe I have a feeling where like a lot of people are going to want to go on this, but maybe there's discussion about this versus the Lincoln option.
What do you think the likelihood of you being able to secure approval from Endeavor Health for that is?
I guess that's maybe a question for not me.
I mean, the likelihood I can't determine today. We have a strong relationship with the leadership at Endeavor. And so we have a contract with them right now to park at Ryan Field. I imagine they would be receptive to this if it doesn't interfere with their operations or their critical services. And so, in terms of a scale of likelihood, I would say they would certainly, I think they would listen and entertain that conversation, but I can't make that decision on their behalf.
Okay, I recall the plan being to use some of Endeavor Health's parking garages for the bigger events.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And they were amenable to that? That's already like planned?
They are, yes.
Okay. I guess like I'm wondering if there's an issue with capacity, not willingness, but whether or not they actually have the space. Because otherwise, I'd be surprised that you found this lot, given that you don't have enough parking already. So if you originally discussed with them your parking needs, I don't understand how this lot didn't come up before, but is coming up now as available.
Well, we don't know if it's available. That's one potential option that we're exploring.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can comment a little bit on that. For the football games and basketball games in the past, this is the 1000 Central lot. Endeavor has allowed Northwestern to park vehicles there for pay. And then historically, there have been shuttle buses on Central to bring people down to the game itself. Those were school buses, not the large buses. Also, the 1000 Central building is the it's an admin building. So this lot that we're talking about here is generally empty on the weekends. So I would say that it is probably an advantageous place to use. And, you know, if you guys have a good relationship, that may work out.
What percent of your, how often is it the case that games are on the weekends as opposed to weekdays?
All of our football, well, say majority of the games. Sorry. I included Friday as a weekend. That's why I said that.
Oh,
Mistakenly. There will be Friday night games, obviously. I mean, historically, the majority of our games have been on Saturday.
okay. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you because this was my biggest sticking point coming out of last meeting. And I think I said that I would never, not that I don't think we have approval rights on anything, but that I would never be able to get behind a plan where you had rideshare either on Lincoln or on Poplar, not only for the bicycles, but also to protect the neighbors, just like I think you've done, tried to do a thoughtful job around my neighborhood. So thank you for listening. I do feel heard on this topic. And I do like the idea of not using it as a parking lot, but indeed using it as a rideshare pick up and drop off point. And I hope that Northwestern and the city could come to some kind of agreement with Endeavor on this. I don't know that it'll be perfect. Like, I don't know, you know, that the in and the out and I mean, I think it's going to take a few reps, but I think that's what this plan should be about. Right. And for me, I would rather try a few reps within this lot than try a few reps on, you know, a noted bike route or within a neighborhood. This feels a lot better to me.
I have a question for you, Pierre. Did we consider Chandler Newberger's lot? And forgive me if we've talked about it and I just don't remember, but other people might be curious too.
Yeah, we did early on. We thought that might be the eastern location. As we thought about it further and started thinking about, okay, how many cars do we have coming in and out? They kind of have, it's not a dead end, but you would go down by the American Legion and loop back around.
Yeah.
But vehicles turning in and out of that lot are also then crossing the path of everyone walking to the Purple Line stop. So we thought maybe we could try to avoid that conflict point and not have those vehicles cross that path.
Sure. Is there a
Can I
third
ask a
option?
For the east side, no, we didn't have a third option on the east side. So we did have options on the west side.
What is further down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, what do you mean further down on this page or just
Yeah.
other pages? Yeah. So there's other options that are for now the west side. So I just wanted to talk about like the Lincoln and this side first.
Okay.
So
I guess I think it would probably make sense to continue exploring Chandler from the perspective of on Friday nights, if we run into issues with Endeavor and their employees being able to park in that lot, you know, having a backup would be probably advantageous.
Yep. Yeah. And again, I think this will be a little bit of a learning experience. I mean, in the past, there wasn't really a good dedicated, I think people actually were directed to use Uber up on Isabella near Asbury, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't think anyone ever wanted to go up there to do it because it's completely out of the way of where most, especially if you're not familiar with the area, like why would you go
It's
north and
also
east?
embedded directly into a neighborhood.
Right. It doesn't make sense. And so what happens is like people just start walking around and they're, you know, they didn't really have a good like option. So we'll see like how many people will use rideshare to get to and from games or other events. You know, if there was a conflict, say it was, they needed the lot for whatever reason, you know, then maybe we just have one zone instead of two zones for that event, or, you know, we can see like how it goes. And I think you're right, Peggy, like we're going to have to watch and adapt. I'm sure like everything will not go exactly according to plan. We're going to have to be flexible and figure out like, all right, what's working well, what's not, you know, what can we adjust and so forth.
Just so I'm clear, on the east side of the stadium, the three options are north on Lincoln, south side
Two
of
options.
Lincoln, and then this new proposal. What-
We're just looking at the south side of Lincoln was the option that we were looking at
Okay.
east. So it'd be like, so vehicles would arrive from the west, go eastbound, pick up there and then go. And that was the only option that we were,
Okay.
but we were putting forward on and then this would be an alternative to that gets you off the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you're going into the 1100
building into that parking lot and then coming back out with the ride share? Is that how that's working?
Is this the 1100 building? I don't know if that's the address or not, but it's the building on the
Cox
south
building.
side of the parking
Is it
garage.
but it's not the Cos building. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not, is it the
Cos
one
building.
that's off of Ridge?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause
So
I was
there's like
afraid you were
a
coming
large
back out
retaining
onto
wall
Central.
on the east side of the parking lot, that one.
Okay.
I mean, you'll have to think about as cars are coming out onto Ridge, which way you wanna, there'll have to be some traffic management there, right? With the
Yeah.
Ubers, because which
Yeah.
way would they go, left or right? You know, that kind of stuff.
And
will
some of
need
that
to-
might depend on like, where are they going?
Right.
So if they're south, obviously you want to go south. If they lived in, I don't know.
Right. But we might need to
North for-
direct them.
yeah.
I'm not the professional, but
I was just gonna say, we could have somebody stationed there and just force everybody south
Yeah.
to keep them away from Central.
So yeah,
Like-
like we don't want them turning back on
Yeah,
Central, going out
that's
Central.
what I
That's
was
for
trying
sure.
to-
And we can work like, do we have an officer at the driveway, or, you know, the officer that would be at Ridge and Central itself? It's like, no, you're not turning left to go
Yeah.
back in front of the stadium, you know,
okay.
because that's how we're like emptying the lots. The east lot goes east, the west lot goes west. We don't want people just driving.
For this
Sure.
alternative, does it make sense to set, I mean, I want to be respectful of Northwestern's relationship or the city's relationship with Endeavor, but do you think it's going to take a week to confirm, 2 weeks to confirm? When do you think we could finalize sort of discussions and understanding the reality of this option? How long does that take?
I mean, we can start exploring that option tomorrow. I don't see why we can't begin further exploring that right away in terms of when they're going to be able to confirm that. I don't know, but it seems like there's some level of consensus among this group that we should prioritize that parking lot as rideshare. And so we'll take that back to our leadership and we can start exploring that option right away.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All
Can I
right.
wait one other question? So if that one doesn't work, if they say no, because we're getting really close to opening date and concerts to keep coming up, what do you see as feasible for option B?
Well, I don't know that anyone has come up with another great option of places that aren't on a public street or that it's not on, like, you know, close by and where people will walk to. I guess we could look at Chandler Newberger again as, like, you know, that could be a potential option. I think we'd have to be careful about the pedestrians walking across the driveway and a bunch of cars coming in and out at the same time. That would be the biggest downside there, but I guess that could be the third option.
I would
Would you think about
discourage
a
that.
fourth option being, if that doesn't work, and I realize we're getting a little bit further, but if we need another backup option, what about the Civic Center parking lot?
To be fair, I don't think anyone's walking down there to catch an Uber.
Well,
Unless
oh,
you
wow.
could brought a
Yeah,
shuttle.
well, and that's
I
fine.
mean-
I mean, maybe you don't have an eastern option. I mean, maybe
Right.
that's it, you know? And then that then gets into our other options for
Yes.
the west.
Okay, good.
I mean,
Hopefully this
there's a point,
option will
like,
work.
yeah, you don't want your rideshare for events to be too close to the stadium, because you don't want people coming in as you're trying to get other people out.
Yep.
And so, you know, you should try to get people to walk a little bit further away, but there's a point to where it's like, they're not going to go there. So you're not going to, it's not a functional, like, loading zone at that point. So, you know, if this one weren't to work, we can, like Fiona said, we can look at the, you know, Chandler Newberger. And I think the key there would be to manage the driveway and the conflicts for, you know, in some events, you know, how many people are going to the Purple Line station or continuing to walk east towards campus, because maybe rather than catch a shuttle, they'd rather walk and get there. So we'd probably need to have somebody, you know, posted at that driveway to make sure,
Yeah.
okay, hey, we don't want cars blocking Central. Let's get a couple cars in, hold off on the pedestrians. Then, like, let's just manage that zone. So that could be an option.
Could you possibly look at having a shuttle take people to the Civic Center?
I think it wouldn't be very likely, just from other events, that people aren't going to want to get on a shuttle to then go catch an Uber. It's like multiple transition points at that point. I don't think we're going to get a lot of takers on that.
How many people do you expect will be coming?
It's going to depend on the event type. yeah, I think we'll have to see.
And
I don't
Peter,
know.
will your team, so in the spirit of like, we need to get a few reps and then assess whether this is the right, if this should work, if this is going to work or not, are you going to have a team, or who's going to be there seeing if this works or not? I mean, what defines working, or?
Yeah, the operations will be managed by Oakview Group.
Okay.
And we have the right people here. Microphone.
I think we do post-game recaps, and it'll involve EPD and UPD and all our major stakeholders to start reviewing what's working, what's not working, and we just in between events and test, and if we have to adjust again, we adjust again.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to make one comment about Chandler Newberger. In addition to the traffic or the pedestrian consideration, the entrance is so narrow. I don't think you can even get one car in and one car out at the same time. And for those who've tried to park there, like, you can't really turn around. Like, you have to park and back out.
Yeah.
So my feeling is that Chandler Newberger is
I
probably
realize.
not
Yeah,
a
this
good
is.
option.
Yeah, I think it's tighter, and I guess it's hard to see, like, maybe my mouse on the screen, I guess.
Yeah, I think
Is there
if
a way
they
to make
use
that full?
Chandler, Laura, they would have to just do a drive-through style only, right? Where they then go down all the way to the end, loop around the turnaround
Yeah,
island.
it's like
and
right
then
in this
back out.
section
So there
here.
wouldn't be any parking allowed at Chandler if they were going to use it for that purpose.
Yeah.
So they'd have to kind of do one or the other.
The parking
So-
spaces would essentially function like a platform where people
Exactly.
are waiting in the parking spaces. So
Yeah.
they'd follow down, basically get down to like where the Legion is and like towards the end where the loop is, and then they'd come back and they would load there. So the attendees would be kind of waiting in this kind of zone along here.
But they also especially on a weekend, aren't they going to have golfers and other people who park there? And I don't know if you can have a train pass to park there, but I mean, it might work on some games, but if
Right.
it won't work for every game,
There might be more
then I'm not
conflicts.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't be switching it for different games.
Right. You want to have a consistent place that you can try to, maybe it's the next season, that might be where it gets changed, or maybe things can be modified. And to your point about like what defines whether it works or not, like obviously we don't want cars backing out onto the street, or
Right.
if it were Lincoln, like there's a defined area where we would want that to be. We don't want cars just lined up down the block, so there's like limits of where that would have to be and managed. But in terms of like how to evaluate, does this work, does this not work, sort of thing.
I
Yeah,
also
can I
want
just-
to follow up on Mike's comment as well as about collaborating and having an after action. Typically, those are pretty routine that we have after large events, typically chaired by Commander Pillars and myself. We do conduct after action reports, which also includes traffic.
Should we move to the other locations? Okay.
Yeah. And Peter, just wanted, before you continue, just something for this group to keep in mind as we determine locations for rideshare that are further out. Just keep in mind there are individuals with disabilities that may have to travel further. And so this is one of the, again, things to consider that might be a second order effect, that it may, we may think that it's best to move folks as far away as possible, but then just considering all the various populations of folks, especially as we try to make this one of the most accessible stadiums in the nation, just something for us to consider.
And will there be a drop off for those with disabilities at the stadium so that they can
Yeah.
actually be?
And that's one of the that was one of the staff comments, and
Okay.
I'll hit on that. Okay, so right now the other option that we have in the plan right now is on Poplar between Lincoln and Central. The concept is northbound, so the vehicle would come in on Lincoln and then make the left turn and go up, and then by the metro station pick up passengers in a similar kind of fashion and then head out onto Central. So we've heard a couple different comments. One was about directionality. Another one was about blocking parking spaces. And as I said, each option has its pros and cons. We also looked at an option where we flip the direction, so it doesn't address concerns about the few houses that are on there. But the idea is that it's the same kind of walking path as those going to a metro station. Before they get to Green Bay Road, they can go south and catch their vehicle, and then they would exit back out onto Lincoln, going west, and then where they'd hit a controlled intersection to go north or south on Green Bay. Already anticipating this. So
Yes.
then the next,
No.
the next alternative was, and back during the original sort of like traffic study and entitlement process, this we had thought of like two, an east and a west. We had talked about Chandler Newberger as the east and Haven Middle School as the west. And so this is, I would say the downside is now that however many we're going to have, people going to the western location are now going to have to cross Green Bay Road and start to conflict a little bit with traffic that we're trying to flush out of the area. Maybe that's okay. The alternative, so just to orient people, north is up, Green Bay Road right here, and Lincoln is just kind of off the screen to the north. And so the vehicles would access the lot off of Green Bay Road and kind of go counterclockwise. Normally you just kind of go around the perimeter and work your way and then pick up as they are facing back towards Green Bay Road. So the parking spaces along the south side of the lot would again act as the passenger kind of waiting area or platform. You also have this grass area. But I think if you had rain or other events, you wouldn't want people necessarily standing in there. So
That's the Kingsley lot or the Haven lot?
this is the Haven lot.
The Haven lot.
Yeah, this is the north end of the track. So you can kind of see to orient, here's the track. Kingsley has a much smaller
Right.
parking lot. Historically, they had, I think it was like a PTA group or some kind of parents group or parking cars in there.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's changing with the school closed and things of that nature, but obviously this is closer.
Yeah.
This is about the same distance as it would be to walk to the other lot that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Pretty close. And so the idea would be that you would pick up along this location, same kind of situation in terms of geofencing. You'd hit a second geofence. So once you walk, you can, request your ride as you're exiting the stadium. But once you get here, then you enter the second geofence and then you get paired with your driver who is, ideally like close or already towards the front of the line, so forth. If we had additional drivers that are showing up and getting calls, we have additional capacity to sort of stack them. So you can imagine the first group kind of on the perimeter, we could have somebody that kind of directs them to another row, and then they get directed in, just so that we're not backing out onto Green Bay Road. And then again, what their exit route is. So if we want, like Commander Pillar said, like maybe it's just, hey, right out. That's the easiest and quickest way to get out. And if we wanted to allow people to go left, we could, but the quickest way would be to flush them south towards McCormick, and then they can kind of distribute to where they need to go. So that's the third option for the west side, and what I'm going to presume most people will prefer. But again, it's a similar type of situation where the university would need to enter into an agreement to use somebody else's property.
Yeah, I mean, thank you again. I think this was another alternative that we had discussed at our previous meeting, and this makes a lot more sense to me. And it also provides a lot more room in providing rideshare the opportunity to turn around and circle out. I just could not envision doing that along Poplar within a neighborhood where you have cars backing out from parking spots.
Yeah, I think on Poplar, like those parking spots wouldn't be used. So that's
Even
that,
still, then
right.
you have rideshare pulling into parking. I mean, just
it's a similar, yeah. Just to kind of clarify what that one looked like.
I think we can just skip it for the sake of time.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's just move on.
Yeah,
I think I see where the preferences are, and so I think it's a similar kind of thing. So if the university is interested or willing, then it's in connecting with Endeavor and District 65 about.
I would hope that District 65 would entertain this. I think it could be interesting for them. Another option, just as we discussed a backup, and then I'll be quiet. There is a lot in between that parking lot where the FedEx and Verizon store are, not that lot, but then there's a lot just north of that, and there's an empty building, and that lot is always empty, and I don't think anyone uses that building
They could buy,
on Green Bay in between the FedEx store and sort of the paint store. There is an empty lot there. So I don't know who owns that lot or who owns that building, but that could be an alternative. Not as good because it's not as large, but if we needed an alternative to D65 or to Haven, we should look at that lot.
yeah, that's a privately owned building with the Mitchell Brother building. and a
Yeah.
Lot, so, maybe you could lease it for 10 years.
Exactly. So we should just, again, I think Haven is optimal, but I think
That's
that's
fine.
another backup plan. I just don't want us to get back into the Poplar conversation.
I
This-
do need to make one comment though about Haven, and this goes back to consistency. During school, we're not going to be able to use that parking lot. And so Kingsley to me actually seems better because we know that's going to be empty. And so if there are some constraints about getting in and out or what have you, I would rather address those.
So just to be clear, so these rideshare pickup zones would be for the post event. So if it's a weekend, like a Saturday college football game, then that's happening in the afternoon typically. So on a Saturday, and I know there's events. I remember I coached basketball at Haven or something at one point in time with my son. So like they'd have to have those different events that they have at the school, and that would have to be, that's one of the issues. You'd have to coordinate with Haven to identify like, is the lot being used at that time otherwise or not?
What's the plan for the drop off though? So
Yeah,
is the drop off, because they're not going to be allowed to stop on Central. So remind me
Yeah.
where people are getting dropped off by their Ubers.
Well, we could either try to establish these as drop-off zones. Typically for rideshare, like the geofence works well in the pickup, but just like if you were in a taxi and said, hey, take me to point A, and then you decide to get off earlier, you just get out earlier. It's a lot harder to control that. I think historically what we saw before at Ryan Field were with Central Street, without having parking, with the parking restrictions, there's a variety of vehicles that pull over to let somebody out real quick. That's where we typically saw Ubers get dropped off. It's a lot easier than like a taxi because your fare is already paid. You're basically just getting out and going. It's a lot harder to try to control that. I think if it became an issue where we have a lot of issues with like cars backing up and things like that, then that's where the folks that are like the police and other folks who are actively managing the intersections can step in and control that. But to be frank, I think a lot of it happens kind of, and it's also more spread out. Whereas like post-event, it's a more concentrated exodus of people that are getting their Uber. Whereas like before a game or before a concert or whatever other kind of event, it's a little bit more over a longer period of time. So it's more distributed, not as
I think this
impactful.
is where the importance of a know before you go communication comes in, and just clearly articulating in that desired drop off points. And doing that, making sure that the city has something on their website, Northwestern has something on their website, there's a text communication, and being able, I think, to communicate that in such a way is going to be important since it's less in our control in terms of drop offs.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we don't want is we don't want people dropping off in neighborhoods, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So I think where that puts people is Central Street, and it's a quick drop and go, and it's much more spread out. We haven't really seen issues with that before. I wouldn't expect that we would continue to, but post event is where I think we're really, we want to have a plan for dedicated locations. And you're only given the options when you get on the app to select a pickup. You get, one, either east option or west option. You can't choose like, hey, pick me up in front of,
Okay.
wherever. Yeah. Okay. To keep things moving along, let me get back to the other comments that we had. I think signage is one that we're still working on in terms of like the locations and having to coordinate with IDOT. So I think that one is still kind of in progress. The offsite parking shuttles. So to clarify the shuttle volume and staging locations, a lot of these, I'll kind of run through these bullet points collectively. We don't We don't want buses staging on Lincoln or Ashland as it would increase congestion. We agree. While Lincoln and Ashland is not ideal, we looked at other alternatives with staff and decided that this was really the most effective route consistent with the previous plan. So that's kind of the direction that we're continuing to go in.
Hey, Peter, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Priel, what document are we following? Because I'm looking at the transportation plan.
We haven't
Evanston
we haven't
comments.
received this document.
Okay, so is
These
it
are- these are-
possible to go through the city of Evanston comment order where it's
I guess that's what,
organized by police department, right? Like,
I guess these are these are staff responses or continued comments following that set of responses. I don't have that one handy.
So this is your response.
No, this is the staff responses to that letter. So they came back with additional points and comments that I think we received Friday.
That after this?
Yes.
So yeah, so that one, this is a response to that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
so not the document that's posted online, the transportation plan comments.
Yeah, Luke, when was this sent over?
I don't know. I think we got
Like-
this on Friday, I want to say, but I don't know when it was received.
Yeah, all right, keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll find it.
It's like the past few days, this document just came out, which is why we don't have it yet.
Yeah. So obviously we don't want staging of buses on neighborhood streets. Agreed. We want to limit staging to keep the buses in continuous loops. So agreed. And this was all kind of part of the discussion we had with staff. If pre-event staging is necessary, staging buses on campus or other non-residential location is required to minimize neighborhood impacts. We agree. All of the staging, so the initial staging, think of it as like an initial wave of buses would be on Ashland adjacent to the stadium to pick up those that are taking shuttles to either on-campus garages. There's basically two routes. One would take you to on-campus locations and the other would take you to downtown Evanston and the different parking locations through downtown. Those would be on Ashland. And so when you come out of the event, the buses would be lined up on Ashland, and then follow-up platoons or waves of buses would be staged on campus. So before we had a concept of having some staged near Longfield across from, I don't know, I think of it as the old Royce Moore, but like that section, because you're not right adjacent to homes. I know there's homes in the neighborhood, but not right there. Instead of, in response to previous comments, we're not going to have any on public streets. They'll all be on campus. So the next wave, as the first wave of buses are filling up, the next wave of buses would be called to come from campus. So we don't have them stopped on Lincoln and they're not stopped on Ashland, south of Central. They're going through their route and continuing up to then backfill the spaces of buses that had already now left to go on their route. That's basically what these are all talking about with regards to the shuttles. There was a question about the specific drop-off zones near downtown Evanston. So there is in the plan, there is a map that shows these locations and the routes. There we go. So the blue route is the downtown route. So you can see we were proposing one stop on Chicago near Church. So you're kind of by the Church Street Garage. The next one, the bus route would then take you on Davis. So somewhere near Davis, Orrington area to capture some of the southern parking locations. And then working your way north and coming up Maple. So like Maple near Clark. So to capture the Maple Street Garage. And I don't know the name of this garage, I guess University Place Garage. And then they would work their way back. So there's three bus stops proposed in the downtown area. One of the comments was asking if will a bus pick up near the Davis train and bus hub? So I assume the question is referring to like, is there a bus stop out in front of the L stop on Benson? We're proposing one on Davis, but we don't propose the loop to go on Benson. So they wouldn't be conflicting with where the current CTA and PACE buses pick up there. We're trying to capture the people who are parking downtown and not necessarily people. We don't expect people to take the train to downtown Evanston and then get on a bus. They would just continue all the way to Central Street.
Is there a associated map that will go with this? Is that one of the exhibits?
Yeah, yeah. So that's this one that shows the routes and the stops.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Oops. And then the last one in this subset of bullets was Northwestern should state that parking rates for events on their websites. I think the intent here is allowing patrons to reserve, pre-purchase, and patronize lesser rate parking assets, and also to limit the number of people driving towards the stadium. And I'll let Oakview Group expand on this further, but the parking at the stadium would be pre-sold, credentialed parking. So no one's going to be able to drive up Central Street, pull into the West Lot, and pay cash to go to a football game. All of that is pre-sold, and it would be communicated. It's available to buy your ticket when you purchase your event tickets, and it's communicated to you like, here's where here's your ticket, here's your parking, here's how you get there, and all that kind of information, and other regular communications to people that have the ability to purchase parking pre-sold at other locations as well. And part of the point is, like, because the parking is limited near the stadium, that's going to be in the highest demand and pre-sold, but also to the extent that we can pre-sell other parking, say on campus, like at the North Campus or South Campus garage, and then you get a free shuttle, and then you can direct people directly to those locations, so they're not driving around looking for parking on the day of the game. Next comment was about providing more detail on collaboration with CTA and Metra on ride schedule and incentives. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here this evening. My name is Bryce Hollig. I'm the general manager of Ryan Field. I like to say the new GM, but it's the new Ryan Field. But anyways, active conversations and coordination with NITA, as we know, will soon be, from my understanding, overseeing Metra, CTA, and PACE as well. As early as yesterday, received some initial comments from them for an agreement that would incentivize ridership, both on Metra and CTA and PACE. So we are actively working through that program to make sure that we can maximize that effort. We've seen this at Ravinia, other stadiums and arenas in Chicago. That works really well. Number one, for throughput, for safety, access, and just getting people away from the stadium as efficiently as possible after the game or event.
I have a question about the ongoing conversations. If the conversations are still ongoing, do we think that contracts will be in place before October 2nd?
Yeah, so
I'm concerned that there isn't enough time to have all of that ready.
Yeah, so and I'll just hand it over after this, but the first season is just football games. There's no concerts until next year. And from the past, when we looked at what was going on at Ryan Field in terms of transit ridership and use of Metra and CTA, they didn't have additional trains running on either service, and there was no issue with overcrowding platforms or overcrowded trains. So we would expect that would continue, so that we wouldn't expect for football games that they're going to add extra trains to the system, because in the past they haven't really needed to do that. I think they'd be willing to do so if there was more business for them to do so, but historically that has never been an issue. So I think in terms of the real critical time would be before the first concert type event, where we would expect to have much larger CTA and Metro ridership than we would for a football game. And so that gives us a little more time on that end. Maybe you can speak to that, but historically we haven't seen issues with capacity on Metro or CTA in terms of overcrowding or needing additional operational capacity.
But we're also talking about all kinds of marketing and communication measures to increase ridership. So are we saying that effort wouldn't begin until next year?
No, I think we would still want to promote and try to increase that. And if that agreement can be made ahead of time, then certainly. I However, it has not been an issue in terms of like capacity or operational capacity. So if the issue is, hey, we need more trains in order to handle the number of people so we don't have overcrowding, then that hasn't really been an issue before. We wouldn't expect that to be an issue for football games.
Peter, is that
But
accurate for like an OSU game as well?
Yeah. So
Sorry,
one of the so the season prior to the reconstruction or demolition, some of the home games that year included Ohio. One of the games did include Ohio State. We were at every home game. Well, I don't know if it was every home game, but it was like Miami, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And Ohio State was one of them. That was definitely the highest attended ones. We had colleagues of mine at the CTA station, at the Metro station post game, specifically watching for this, and it just wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't really an issue.
Would you say that if there is not an agreement between the first concert, that there just be no concert until this is arranged? Because where it seems like we've been going on, had this
I would.
back
I
for
wouldn't.
3 years.
I guess
and-
I can't answer that, but I don't. I
But
think
there-
there
I
was
think that
an
the public
agreement
is-
seems pending. It's just.
Yeah.
It's not. It may not. I don't know. I can't speak to whether it would be set before October 1st or 2nd. Right.
Well, I'm not saying by October, but I'm saying there's been no consequences. There's no teeth in the ordinance per se. And so for 3 years, we've been hearing that there's going to be conversations going, and I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, but they haven't happened. So if all of a sudden next May, Northwestern wants a concert, then no concert if there's no agreements with on all this stuff. Is that what?
I mean.
Does that seem feasible to you?
No.
No, I don't think so. But I'll
No,
let them
I can
answer. I'll let them
I know,
answer.
but I mean, I don't
It
think it's
doesn't
fair
mean
to
that-
the people of Evanston either.
No, I would say, Mary, to relieve some of your concerns, look, going back to what Bryce mentioned earlier, Bryce has had some very productive conversations with the CTA that we're just not at liberty to share today. But I would say that we feel confident that some type of agreement will be in place ahead of concerts that will make sure the CTA has enough capacity to support the increase in ridership next year. And so we feel pretty confident about that. And going back to Laura's question or her comment earlier,
Yeah.
yes, we want to try to incent folks to take the train, to ride the CTA, to ride the Metro, to take advantage of PACE, and hopefully that will increase the ridership on all of those different platforms. But even going into this first season, as Peter was mentioning, we're not as concerned because historically there has never been a problem. But we
Right.
certainly would like
I
to
just
see
want to
that
make
increase.
sure we have a plan and that there are
Yeah.
deadlines and consequences. That's all I'm asking.
I know you're talking about punitive measures, and so we're not there yet.
And when,
And I don't think we'll ever
We'll
get
talk-
there. And
well-
so
I think we do need, as a committee, we do need to talk about that. I would like this to be wildly successful and safe for everybody. I would love us to be able to do, as Laura said, have very good marketing and encourage people to come and do their via public transportation and to be able bikes to be safe. So it's just like, it's all of that, but I don't want us to always be going, well, we're still talking. And then these meetings become meaningless. And then we just have to have enough time to create the plan. That's all I'm asking.
So what are you concerned about us delaying the decision for?
On the transportation, on the train and the Metro,
What about the train and the Metro?
that we don't have an agreement to have more Metro if we need. We're encouraging people to come because the difference between football and concerts, is that the majority of the people that come to the football games are in Evanston anyway. They
Okay.
can walk, they can ride, they can do that.
And what would you want to happen if the CTA or Cook County says that they're not going to run more lines? Then what do we
Then I
want?
think we need to talk about it because that's what we were promised.
Okay, well, we could talk about that now.
And that,
Well,
is it going, well, I just said no.
I don't think
I'm not
I'm
asking
not,
for you,
I'm not
Brian. I'm just
confident
saying,
that Northwestern promised that because I don't think they can really say what Cook County will or will not do. I think that they might have made assertions that they would try. So I guess like the question is, assuming the worst case scenario, I guess what I'm asking is if you're concerned about that, we can address it to some degree here. We have to work backwards from what we want.
what I
So-
guess I'm asking for, Periel, is I think that like this advisory committee was supposed to start a year or two before it started, according to the MOU. It was supposed to be twice a year and get there. So we're already behind the time. We were supposed to have a full transportation plan 90 days before the game. And we all said, okay, well, we're just going to go with it. We're going to keep flowing. And what I don't want to see happen is that we get to the time that things are start and then you are not able to do the programs because we didn't plan for the delays. So I think if we say that in these MOUs and in these transportation plans, there are things that are going to happen, we need to back it up like you do in any other plan that you're making and have it, we're going to work backwards and by this date, this is going to happen. That's what I'm asking for. Or say, we're not going to
No,
do that.
actually, I'm going to be chair and say that I need
so
people
I'm
at this point to go ahead and use lights. So just give it a second.
Yeah.
I want to know, what is your recommended solution for the problem that you're stating?
I would just like to know that when, we're going to be having meetings and by this date, we will have an answer,
So you're saying that you would like more concrete dates as to when you will receive answers to your questions?
I think prior to, no, what I want is more concrete dates prior to any concert dates. The
Prior to
football,
any-
I'm not as concerned
any
about. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of people come in to see the new field and it's an amazing field. I get that.
How much time do you think we need? Because our first,
I don't know. That's in Oakley. I mean, I don't run event centers.
Okay.
So I don't know how much time we need to get the word out for public to encourage people to use public transportation. And I don't know what that is.
Okay.
But I would expect that advice to be coming to us already. I would have liked to have seen it already, quite frankly.
Okay, so your recommendation is that you would like to see a draft of the concert plan. You want to be sure that they are engaging consultants to develop their first draft of the concert plans as soon as possible?
Well, yeah, and I'd like to know that what happens if there isn't any plans? What if it comes time for the concerts and we don't have something with the Cos building, or we don't have something with District 65, or we don't have confidence that there's going to be an extra train if that's all we need?
Okay,
What
and you're
happens?
referring to the concert operations plan? correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dave, do you think that in the next 2 weeks you can give us a timeline for what the concert operation plan draft, when we'll get the first draft for?
Maybe I can frame it a little bit differently. So I can give you a time frame, but I think what Mary is trying to ask, without putting words in her mouth, is when we'll have some concrete plan around some agreement with Metra and CTA and PACE. I can say confidently, Mary, that that plan will be in place well before we are required to submit a concert operation plan,
And
which
what-
is supposed to take place 6 months before our first concert.
Okay.
And we don't have a date for our first concert, but I don't imagine it's going to take place anytime before spring or summer of 2027.
Okay,
that were
so
to
you
happen.
would have that, but will it be more, do you think it'll be more in detail than this is, because as we're revisiting this?
Yeah, it'll
Less than
include
90
what the
days.
CTA, what kind of incentives, increase service and trains, and it'll include those details.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, public comment is over and we're not accepting anymore. I'm very sorry, but you can email me and I will share it with all the other advisory council members. Jim?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
Okay. So there was, and I'll give it to Oakview Group on this if they want to expand, but it was about elaborating on outreach events or outreach methods and how you encourage alternative modes of transportation to the site. So as I mentioned, just like as you would when you purchase your ticket, you have the opportunity to purchase parking and things like that. There would also be not just parking, but hey, here's how you would get here on the CTA. Here's how you get here on PACE or Metra. And all the other options. Here's how you get here by bike and so forth, and information on like the bike valet and so on. I'm not sure what the right term is, but sort of like venue marketing materials. Know before you go, like those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of channels that would go through. One when you're purchasing, but also just at that point they have your contact information, your email. You're getting all this kind of stuff periodically before the actual event. Okay, so there was a comment from the police department about adding lighting that will be installed at the site entrances, and that they remain operational until everyone leaves the area. I think there was Sounds like there was maybe an event, I don't know if it was last season at Walsh Ryan, where it was darker, the lights came down before everyone left. So
Yeah.
that's
Peggy.
that we agree.
Peggy has a question. Sorry.
I don't want to go backwards, but
It's okay.
maybe we'll get there. But I'm as follow up to Mary's comment really quickly. I don't think we can ask the Metro to add more trains until we actually know how many people are going to be taking trains into the events. But I am interested in having and seeing the incentive plan for the train or for public transportation. So I just wanted to say that. And then also, Dave, if we could see it, you just said a no before you go example. What I would be interested in is a commitment from Northwestern about reviewing, not approving, but just being able to have a preview of any no before you go communications. So we can say, oh, wow, you guys really nailed it. Or, oh, hey, maybe we need to talk about more clearly about drop off points for Ubers.
Laura?
Thank you. The conundrum I see with the Metro CTA question is that in the past, we haven't done as much marketing as we're doing this year. And so theoretically, we're increasing ridership. And if we don't increase, at least by a little bit, the schedule and the cars, and we have increased train use up here, people are going to be really disappointed on the way home because it's going to take forever. So it's a balancing act. And Peggy, to your point, I get that Metro and CTA might not add a lot of cars, but if we can at least add a few so people don't have a terrible experience going home, because if that happens, how likely are they to ride the train to the next game?
Okay, Sergeant Wright.
Hi, yes. This is Amanda Wright, Sergeant of the Traffic Unit for Evanston PD. Just going to the lighting, I know it said sites, but I just wanted to clarify those lights that we were talking about are lights where cars are coming out of the entrance for evening games. And the reason why those are so important is because we have a lot of pedestrians and kids that are trying to pass by or pass through the lots, but it's so dark on Ashland and also on Central coming out of that parking lot. So those lights, they are usually there at night, but they are being taken down prior to the game ending. And so what happens is you can't see the pedestrians as cars when we're trying to file those cars out of the lot. So I know it said sites, but I just wanted to clarify it's the parking lot exits and entrance that I'm talking about for the evening games.
Right. Right.
Thank you, Sergeant Wright.
Yep.
Okay, Peter, you can continue. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Fiona.
Sorry. And Peter, now that I've found the comments that you're going off of, I do see that this is coming up, but I think that this, even the sergeant's comment highlights my request that we start to see some breakouts or some sort of identification within the plan of where these types of procedures are going to, or when and how they're going to be implemented, depending on the size of the game and the time of the game, whether it's a weeknight or a weekend. I think we really need to see that distinction within this plan. We've talked about when school is in session, if parking or geofencing is going to be available within certain lots. And I understand that's probably not likely, but I think that understanding that, this lighting situation is for a night game, but obviously isn't going to be needed or necessitated during an afternoon football game is another example, right? But
Yeah.
it's just to me making it more clear that there are
it's applied.
there are a lot of nuances between the different types of events that Northwestern is requesting to do at this facility, not just standard football games that typically happen during the day and maybe once a year happen on a weeknight or a Friday night. So
Yeah.
to me as a committee, like I would not be comfortable and I know that Luke wants this wrapped up by the end of August, approving or blessing, because I don't know if I have approval power, anything out of this committee without that distinction. Like Peggy had her ride or die on whether or not we had parking on Lincoln. This is my, like, I can't move past this unless we have some distinction built around the different types of events that are happening. And the fact that the very first expected sellout event is a Friday night during school in session, I think this is really critical.
Mhm. Yeah, and so I remember your like a previous comment, you were asking about, like, you know, Ashland for buses when St. A's is letting out, you know, on a Friday, you know, and how those, whether they overlap. And so we can have some detail just to clarify when that that conversion of Ashland goes to one way, and that's typically been, I think, like roughly like maybe within no more than 2 hours prior to the start of the game. And you know, those won't really overlap with their pickup time, but I think it's good, like you said, to clarify when and how it applies. And even just like there's a later question about like the scalability. So there's a lot of things in this plan that aren't going to be needed when you have a smaller kind of maybe community oriented event or smaller attendance event where all the parking is happening just on site and you don't have remote parking, or you have fewer shuttles because you only are using like the North Campus garage as an off campus or an off site location. So
I think part of my my rationale for wanting this too is for the community and Northwestern and this committee, the city, everyone to really understand the trigger points. Like, when are we needing to have just the north lot available or only on-site parking available? And I'm not saying that it has to be exactly 15,000 people in attendance or above, but there has to be some sort of guardrails around approximately this is the plan, so that as a resident, I know, hey, there's this winter festival coming up. Awesome, I want to go, but are parking restrictions in place during a winter festival? Is Central Street, are we going to be allowed to have parking on Central Street for businesses during the winter festival? Where are the employees parking that need to be at those businesses, let alone the people that are coming to patronize those businesses, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about the committee or even the city and the safety response to it. It's what does the community need to understand? And this is an all-encompassing document. I understand that it's going to grow and be edited out over time. But if the idea is that this is supposed to cover 60 events a year plus concerts and football operations, we need to adjust for that.
that's a good point. And I think maybe we can sort of define some tiers of event types based on attendance and what would be in place or not in place. Sort of like tier one obviously is, you know, football game or a concert, like where you have like the much larger crowds where this whole document is kind of applicable. And we can define what those tiers are, where if it's just all on-site parking, I don't think, just so you know, I don't think we're talking about stripping parking on Central for any other than like the largest events. Probably wouldn't be running shuttles for anything else unless there is a need for some parking on campus. And obviously it would be much fewer shuttles for smaller events. So we'll go back and like, we'll define some tiers of what we think is like tier A, tier B, tier C, maybe there's a tier D, and it kind of identifies, here's the things in the plan that apply, and here's the things that would obviously not apply. So I guess I don't envision anything other than the largest events having any restricted parking on Central, so people can go to Hune or whatever, just like they would normally do. Now there might be more activity because there's more
And that's
people in the
good.
area,
I think the
but
point is though
yeah.
that we don't know that,
Yeah.
right? Like as residents, as members of the city,
Well,
we don't, we're not getting that information
Yeah.
based on this plan yet.
And to be fair, I think, you know, I don't know what all the different community events are exactly, the programming. I mean, I think in my mind, it's a lot of us residents are the ones that are attending. So it's, you know, hopefully we're walking, biking, whatever. I mean, if it's the winter, maybe fewer people doing that, but that would change kind of like what the demand would be. Also, some of these events I can foresee a lot of events that are not like just a start and an end, but it's like over the course of the day. So people maybe are coming throughout. And so that demand might be, oh, sorry.
I just want to add, like, regarding the lighting, there's a lot of site improvements going on now. So what was there with the old stadium's not going to be there with the new stadium. And our commitment is, as operators, we take on the risk of those people who are attending the events. So we're very diligent about making sure we're providing a safe environment for everyone. So with Matt here from our parking operation and our operation team, we'll walk that site at night prior to the first game, making sure we understand where people are moving and then adjust and bring in temporary lighting where it makes sense and where we see fit to bring those in. We're not going to allow an unsafe environment to take place out there.
I just wanted to add that this is Fiona's, gosh, got to be like third or fourth time requesting the tiers. So I'm going to ask that I also agree with her. I want to note that parking restrictions by ordinance kick in at 4,000 attendees for the events. And so
Just to clarify,
talking about-
neighborhood parking restrictions
Yes.
or, okay, or
Neighborhood
Central
parking
Street.
restrictions.
Okay.
Neighborhood parking
I think it was
restrictions at
talking about Central Street.
4,000.
That's fine.
I'm not sure what the cutoff is for Central Street.
Central is at our discretion. Or historically, that is.
Okay, yeah, I would prefer a bright line rule and a number.
Yeah.
But
Let me check on that for you.
okay. And if we don't have one, this might be a good time to establish one. But I do think there are some things that we have discussed that already will come in by ordinance, that come in by discretion. And there are certain considerations where I think that we do need to make sure we kick up our expectations. So when we talk about the buses and the shuttle buses and putting out traffic personnel, I don't think that that is always necessary for every type of event. And so we do want to clarify when we will and will not be expecting it, because what I don't want as a council member is for you to have an event that has 5,000 people and neighbors were expecting that you would have someone coordinating traffic and there isn't anyone, and I get an email because a car accident happened or something like that. So it would be good for us to have in place whatever, if there's anything in this document that we are expecting to only do sometimes, we need to specify when those times they are happening. I also worry that with regards to parking, if there are expectations where there's a certain limit where we're expecting parking to overflow into other parts of the city, so we're going to be utilizing more of the downtown parking because of the need for parking spaces, then that is also a separate tier as well for consideration. My understanding, like on a similar note, is that we don't plan to do shuttle buses for the smaller events, right? Yeah, so when
Well,
are the
if you
shuttle
had, if you
buses?
had off-site parking, then you would want to provide shuttles. Yeah.
I guess like the question is, when are you going to have off-site parking? Like when
Well,
are these
and that
things
kind of
gonna happen?
depends. I wouldn't always put it on just, I guess I have clarifications on the attendance number. So, if you have a community event that draws 5,000 people over the course of a day or versus 5,000 people at one time, if it's a community event versus if it's drawing more outside visitors from outside the community that are more likely to then drive, you can have like the same size event have a completely different sort of parking demand. And so I think we might have to have more definition around what are the types of events and what are they drawing,
It's up to you guys to come up with whatever,
Yeah,
like,
we can come up with a
categories
suggestion on
make
how to
sense.
categorize them. But I guess you understand my point. Like if you had a 5,000 person event and everyone was there at one time, that would be one. And if it was like
Yeah,
people
no,
coming from out,
I understand.
yeah. So
But I think
I
that
think we just
you're
have to define that a little bit.
You're basically reinforcing Fiona's point where we don't want to make these decisions a week beforehand, a day beforehand. We want people to feel
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
blindsided, and we want to set expectations. And for city staff to know what to expect
Yeah,
and what
sure.
the plan is.
And to add on Peggy's previous request about the know before you go sample, I would like to see with those tiers, a sample know before you go that is from the idea of this is what Northwestern's expectation of this event is going to be. Therefore, the city communication needs to be such exhibit A to residents. Because to Periel's point, if it's, let's use a graduation, Peter, I think that's probably a better, it's a isolated 5,000 person event, right? That we are going to have parking restrictions in place, right? It's going to be timed between 12 and 3 p.m. And so then there's parking. But if it's an all day ice skating thing, then yeah, maybe there's not parking restrictions for that. I think there does need to be some clarification around that. But I think that we need to have the communication of what Northwestern is expecting the event type to entail, such that the week leading up to it, I'm not emailing Periel and Dave going, hey guys, we've got this thing happening. Am I going to be restricted? Do I need to know, how do I get to my house? Because I live directly west of the stadium, right? So those are the things that we're trying to mitigate up front by having these tiers of events so that we know what to expect and we don't have a flurry of emails. Because even again, this year, when we had graduations a year ago with parking restrictions, the week of graduation, everyone was sending around emails going, what the bleep is happening, right? Like, when are parking tickets being issued? When do I need to worry about my residents or my neighbors coming in or family, et cetera? So thank you.
Okay. Okay, so include bike ride information. So we are preparing a map, and I think we'll have to, this was one of the discussions with staff when we talked about bike valet, and I'll just try to, I know there were some comments earlier that Kelly had about bike valet. I don't know, Matt, if you want to address that part of it.
Yeah, just to address the concerns on the no paper ticket, the system does have a reusable NFC tag system that will utilize for people that either don't have a cell phone or are not comfortable using their mobile number as their claim ticket. So they won't need any mobile device to claim their property at the end of the event. We'll be able to reuse and reissue these tickets, so we won't have paper stock tickets either, which is a good thing, which will hopefully keep any littering or any other things happening regarding that. So we'll be able to provide services for anyone that needs it.
Okay, and then yeah, we've got some route. There'll be a map that's added into this in terms of routing to the site for cyclists, as well as to the different parking options.
I have two quick questions about the bike valet. Maybe not to be answered, but at least for you to think about it. How long after each event will the corral stay open? And then also, what about bikes that are left overnight?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we are saying. We'll probably have communication, for the people that do give their phone numbers, we can communicate with them for when the final pickup would be. We would keep staffing on site, ideally until the last bike leaves, but we will have a game plan to either store those bikes and work with the university on how long they will be stored and what happens if they're not claimed.
That was it. The group of okay. Okay. Then there was and I thought it was an interesting idea around like the, how to use bike valet, kind of adding that to the social media kind of role of videos. I think that would be great. Good example. ADA drop-off was asked about like details of that. I think some of that is still getting worked out, but the plan at this point is to have that be on Ashland, on the east side of Ashland. So vehicles that need to drop off someone that has accessibility or mobility challenges could happen there. We need to kind of finesse that and figure out where that is relative to the shuttles. But also, and then that way they can continue north to Isabella and then work around, kind of go clockwise around to if they're parking off site, or if they're parking on site, they can go to their on-site parking location, but provide a location on Ashland that is adjacent to the stadium that lets those folks get in or get out. Wayfinding signs, again, kind of similar to an earlier comment, and about coordinating that with the city and IDOT. That's in progress. Best practice has been used to unload shuttles north of Central and north of Wildcat Alley. In the past, there's actually been 2, and we would continue to want to have 2 because we have 2 separate routes. We don't want people getting on the downtown shuttle when they're needing to go to the campus parking garage or vice versa. So they're kind of, right now the plan is like just north and south, so that we have 2 distinct areas so you know which shuttle bus that you're actually needing to get on. But point taken. Then this next one, we're almost done. City of Evanston and Wilmette have an agreement to, this is essentially restricting parking on Isabella as well as Ashland between Central and Lincoln. That's not shown on the plan, but that is the intention. So the plan is getting updated to show those no parking zones. We agree with that statement. Second to last one, noted that the plan is only applicable. This was what we just talked about in terms of tiers and so forth. So we'll get some tiers and show like what applies to different attendance and time parameters. And then the last one is about there's no parking on the golf course. If there were to be parking on Canal Shores going forward, the plan would need to be revised. Of course, that would need to be revised because we'd have to figure out what is the pedestrian routes to and from, what are the vehicle access routes. But at this point, that is not part of the plan and it's not anticipated. But if it were to happen sometime in the future, then obviously the plan would need to be updated. That's all. That's the last of those comments.
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry.
Just one comment, Laura. I just want to speak into Fiona's point. I just want to go back to that really quickly, just so that we understand what we're being asked to produce. So Fiona, so can I make a suggestion if this works for you? Right? Because I really like the tiered approach and that's something that we're considering anyways. So would it be okay if we look at 3 tiers? One, we've already satisfied. That's for football games. Then one for, I would say, events under 10,000. So between 4,000 to 10,000, because at 4,000, that's when the community parking restrictions kick in. Is that accurate? Okay, so second tier events between 4,000 and 10,000, that would also include our basketball games. And then community events, which shouldn't include very much. And those are under 4,000. Is that fine? Because I just want some clarity on what you're asking us to produce.
Yeah, I think that that is reasonable. That's fine. I think that though within those buckets, there's still going to be some commentary on if this event happens on a school day or if this happen events in the summer, right? Like my point being, like, you know, we spoke specifically already about St. A's or even Haven, right, being used. So if any of this is impacting the local schools, the kids being able to get home safely. I mean, you got to also remember that it's not just school gets out at 3:30. There's aftercare at the schools that typically goes till 5 or 5:30. And I don't even know when that specific time is, but that is bumping up into a 7 o'clock start game that you might now be trying to change shuttle routes at 5 o'clock for events. So I just want to caution that or remind everyone that there are a lot of scenarios that we just need to be thinking about within those. There's the physical people number, but then there's the impact of the community component. And I'm just asking for those impacts to be highlighted within those bubbles. So yes, the 3 ranges I think are acceptable. I think 4 to 10 makes sense from the parking perspective for that trigger. Under, you know, community events that are kind of all day type things with less people, I think that's a reasonable constraint. And then the large scale, to me, football and concerts are probably similar, other than the fact that with a concert, you're going to have a lot of people kind of showing up more at once versus everybody all trying to leave at the same time, which happens for a concert and football. So it's that type of consideration that I'm looking for within those buckets.
Got
And
it.
thank you, Periel, for highlighting the fact that this is the 4th time I've asked for it.
And yeah, I'm counting the emails too. She did mention it in at least one email I can recall. Okay. So I guess we're at 7:30. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then come back at it. I think this meeting's actually going to have to be a little bit longer than I was hoping to get this done by 7:30, but we do need to at least address the sustainability plan briefly tonight. So 5-minute break for, you know, restroom and everything else. We'll come back at 7:35.
Yeah, they're so confused.
Yeah. I mean, there's like so many opportunities. That you make.
Yeah. She did. Okay. I don't know.
Bye, see you later. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. She's great. I did. Okay, great.
Yes, what I can saw. I mean, I didn't say required, but I took that MOU very seriously. And I mean, I would love to see that. And so, thank you. Because I mean, I don't mean, I get that, because I'm like, I know it's in there. So, if it's not, I like that. And so it's not passion. But I mean, that's what we need to do for all of it, because it's just, there's not enough space there, and the bikes are really important. No, it's interesting. Thank you. Have you been working on the motorized vehicles, the scooters? Yeah. Because that's going to come. Well, I thought we were going to discuss it, but I'm very concerned about that. I mean, I think they're good, but I'm thinking they're also going to be incredibly dangerous with that many pedestrians. And I don't know what kind of discussions have been had in the city about that.
Safe routes.
Keep them separate. Okay, so you would agree that no ride share on Lincoln? Yes, yeah, I agree with you. At first, when they were talking about putting it in the building of, I thought they were talking about the 1100 Central or 1000 Central, which is the most crazy parking lot in Evanston, I think, because it's really tight. But if they go to the Cos building, if that's the one over there, that makes so much sense. Susan's explaining some of the emphasis on trying to, like you were saying, I think that's such a good point about let's market it. Let's really get at how easy it is.
If I know.
Right. Exactly. That's a good point too. Thank you.
So congrats.
Well, you know, it's part of the truth, and there's not the consequences that are in the MOU or even in the ordinances. You know, and it's it's written very vaguely, certain things, but if we could put it, we have to be careful before we, the council, well, what does this mean? And I get into the details. I'm just like, I like to know if this happens, or if this happens, this happens. Because that's why the sustainability that we're about to get into is kind of a little messy.
Yes, you get my email. I don't know how. No, but that's good. You got it. And I'll follow up with James. And then as we do the bigger city, they'll come in and help you out. This all sounds good.
Very nice responding to
Well, no one's leaving.
We gotta get started. So like, jump back in. Okay. Oh. How's it going?
Your turn.
My turn.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just came back there.
From my perspective, you guys are actually, because from what I've seen so far, like it's been pretty thorough and you guys know it so most. There's a lot, obviously. I don't know that we should start that kind of speaking to Ariel, but I mean, I do think that we should just. They're similar, yeah, no, I think if you guys do something in the next year or two, and then nice to see you too. And then maybe there's.
Right. That's a great idea. We haven't talked about that.
We're gonna get restarted. If we can all get seated, please. Y'all watch out because I'm in charge. Someone was silly enough to let that happen.
Thank you, Sarah.
I was going ahead already, Dave.
And for those that are listening online, Luke dismissed our security team, so we are not going to pursue that portion of the agenda for tonight. We're going to focus on sustainability.
Can I just ask a question? I know I had a couple questions regarding, are we done with transportation? Was that different?
If you still had a few transportation things, we should probably cover it real quick.
Okay, we're just really trying, like us to think about for the next time. And one is the motorized vehicles and the scooters like that.
Yeah, that was a good comment in your email, actually.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, because with all the pedestrians, that we have some sort of expectation that they are not on Central Street, that they're in the bike lanes, that we're not going to get people hurt. And the second one was the signage and the QR codes.
Yeah.
That I think, I don't want people coming into Evanston having to figure out 2 hours before an event and an hour after, and then not, I think we just need to make it really easy for people. And I go to a QR code and I say, oh, there's this going on here. It starts at, there's no parking from 5 to 7 or 5, 4 to 12, whatever it is, but not the 2 hours before. So I don't know who deals with that, but I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah, so I think, Peter, that's probably directed at you. And one of the things that I was going to add about the signage was one of my requests, and I maybe just didn't get documented accurately, was for the exhibits to actually update where the signage, like there's one exhibit, and I think it's number 6, I don't have it in front of me, that says there's no neighborhood parking, like, and there's red dots on the exhibit and it's all along Isabella, but there weren't, I was expecting to see that updated for other Evanston streets. So like at Central and Eastwood, there should be a sign. Remember we talked about all the different potential spots?
Yeah, I think we'll have like the signs, because I think we talked about like a sawhorse kind of with
Correct.
a sign that's like, hey, local resident traffic only, or whatever we wanted to say.
Yep.
And that would just be at all the gateway points. So on Central, Isabella, even if you're coming in on Livingston off of Green Bay, like maybe it's like
Right.
when you get to Poplar.
I would like to have the
that
exhibit
first spot.
updated with
Yeah.
that information, please.
Yeah, nope, and I think we're
Okay.
going to have like a example, like what does that look like?
Yep.
So it's a sawhorse with a diamond sign or something like that.
So then I guess to Mary's question though about e-scooters, like Evanston, and maybe Luke, this is for you, and unfortunately our security staff just left, but we don't really have an ordinance, or is there an ordinance that says they can't be on the sidewalks? I think there is, right?
I believe so, but we want to double check that.
Okay, so can I, as chair, task you of looking
Yes.
into that? Thank you. Thank you. So I'd like to know what the Evanston ordinance is on that. And then I think again, and maybe this goes kind of to the bike plan, is where the bikes are getting parked going to have like, is a scooter valet an option? With the RFID tracking you were
Yeah.
mentioning
I think
earlier.
you
So
would-
I think that we should just include in the plan that scooters or any other, and I think that there is kind of the, correct. Well, that was what I was going to say. Like you've kind of got that like gray area of, motorcycles, you've got cars, motorcycles, Vespas, which are like 35 mile an hour, like maxed out speed, right? And then you've got your true e-scooters. So maybe just state what would be accepted at the valet, bicycles, e-bikes, e-scooters, and then that way it's comprehensive. But I think the safety component is what Mary's concern is. How is that going to be managed? And maybe that's just a comment, Luke, we also need to take to the safety conversation when you meet in a week or two. Okay. Anything else transportation wise before we move on? Mary, did you have
No,
any
I
other comments?
said it in the email, so I think that was pretty much it.
Okay. And then Luke, since Mary sent that email, can those comments get over to Peter and his team? Because I don't think that they were on that. Dave, you have them. You got them? Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Anything last to add, Peggy? No. Okay. All right. Moving on to sustainability.
I'm sorry. We did have some follow-up discussions with city staff after the last submission of the sustainability plan, and we got back 8 clarifying questions that I was going to just walk through, similar to what Peter did, if that makes sense. The first question is, what elements of the old structure were reused? Very little to none was reused. We have, and we supplied this information back to the city on Friday. There's 8 pages of fixtures and fittings that were removed from the old stadium for repurposing, not at the new stadium, but at NU. And in addition to that, no materials were reused, but over 21,500 tons of construction debris was recycled. That includes concrete and steel primarily. Please provide a post cleanup plan. We are in the process of putting that together. We're currently on the street now interviewing national cleaning companies that specialize in working in stadiums. But our immediate focus for our cleanup will be stadium perimeter, on-site parking, and foot travel paths from public transportation to the stadium. That's the approach we're taking at this present time.
I have a question for you. The neighborhood cleanup that happens? Is that done by Northwestern students? Who does that
It
neighborhood
is.
cleanup stuff?
It's largely done by Northwestern students. And it's coordinated through athletics. And the reason why it's not in this plan is because parking in the community has been restricted. So we don't anticipate as much heavy pedestrian traffic in the neighborhoods because folks aren't walking back to their cars. So, we'll see how things go. And again, that's why we'll continue to have these conversations over time, because if we determine that, 2 or 3 games down the line that, there's a tremendous amount of garbage or trash in the neighborhoods, then we can revisit that program.
I think one of the requests early was in an exhibit to show any additional garbage receptacles, et cetera, that were going to be placed specific to the event, like in the walkway patterns. Will that be in your plan?
Yeah, what our plan is absolutely, especially in the parking lots, we'll have recycling cans available. I don't know if we've taken it out to the walkways, but we certainly can.
Yeah, I think there's minimal trash cans along Central Street between the current stadium and the Metro stop, for example, and then similarly going east. So I think that my request would be that we identify some periodic additional bins that would be temporarily placed to capture people that are walking that may have, snacks that they're still eating on their way out.
Okay.
And then, what the anticipated, timeline is going to be for those cans to be emptied and removed or whatever that plan is.
We do evening, after the game, whether it's that evening, we'll do a sweep.
This is kind of a sidebar, but I know that like on the lakefront, like on the 4th of July, like things get overflowing. I don't know how, is that something that, since they're dealing with the operations, but like more frequent pickups, that type of thing for emptying out so that we don't have that overflowing problem?
Overflowing in which area?
Like garbage cans, like overflowing because there's kind of a massive amount of people.
It's on internal, external,
External.
Yeah, look, we'll have a perimeter crew established that we can make regular rounds. We'll have gator carts that are available to go through, pick up materials, trash, bring them back to the stadium so that they're not filling up out there.
Okay. Since it's not on here, well, I guess, so composting, I know it's part of the question about the bathroom, but is composting going to be included within the stadium?
So year 1, composting will be done back at house, primarily in the food and beverage areas. Year 2, we are required by code to do it front of house, so we will incorporate composting throughout the full facility in year 2. And just since you mentioned it, we're also in the process of running an RFP for waste haulers to support the operations. We asked the question, one does accept restroom paper towels, one does not. So depending on who that final selection is, we either will or won't be able to do that in year 2. Not
Can
in
I
year
ask who you got bids from?
Waste Management and Republic, the 2 largest ones out there.
Because couldn't Evanston uses the composting collective, right? Did you reach out to them?
To the city of Evanston?
No, the composting collective is who the city of Evanston contracts with for composting.
No,
And they do accept paper towels because my office gets them.
Does Republic do that for them? Because
wanna answer,
Republic was the
Karen?
one who said that they could accept it.
The city of Evanston uses or allows for multiple different composting providers to be used within the city. It's a new change. Not sure anyone from Public Works could comment further.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that it's the composting collective. It's a few different businesses.
Okay. Well, I know, so composting collective picks up at my office and they pick up our paper towels in our bathroom. So
Yeah,
some
look, I mean,
context.
it's certainly year 2. We got to get through the selection process and then we can get back and either confirm or come up with an alternate plan. The question about why bathroom hand dryers were not feasible. We were not here for that decision, but the reason why it's hand dryers really just can't keep up with demand of the washroom traffic at halftime, at quarters. You get massive rushes of people at one point in time. Hand dryers are 20 to 30 second 40-second process. And what happens is people stop using them. They don't clean their hands because they don't want to wait in line. They go and it's less hygienic. So again, I wasn't here for that decision. That was the design and project team. But I can tell you, I've worked on hundreds of these new stadiums and new arenas, and it's consistent with the approach that I've taken on each of those venues just because of the volume capacity.
Couldn't you just have the hand dryers and then people just don't use them? I mean, I wash my hands all the time and just don't dry them. Is that not a thing? Why?
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
The next question was, are all kitchen appliances electric? The answer is no. There will be gas cooking in the facility, although there are a number of induction heating elements that are being used in primarily premium areas and some of the pantry spaces, but there will be gas cooking in the facility. There was a question regarding the goal or percentage or quantity of electric and or hybrid stadium operation vehicles, golf carts, forklift, and landscaping equipment. We did not set a goal at this point, but I can confirm to date, all we have purchased are all electric equipment. And that's our focus. If we run into a scenario where a electric option is not viable, we will consider gas, but to date, we've already purchased golf carts, we've already purchased forklifts, we've already purchased groundskeeping equipment, and they are all electric. Third question here: what is the goal percentage of electricity procured from renewable sources? Day one, we have a target of 30%. We haven't gone to market yet to look to buy that yet, but that is the target that allows us to get the LEED certification that the building was targeting as part of their LEED submission. We were asked to acknowledge intended compliance with anti-idling ordinance 12010, and we will acknowledge that, and we can put that into the plan, and we'll have the appropriate signage in place. And the last question is, when will annual reports be provided to the city, and what is the planned reporting process? We had a discussion with the city last week about this. We would suggest that the plan be delivered in that June, July timeframe. That allows us to get through a full fiscal year, allows us to observe all the different event activities that take place, and then gives us July, August to reassess and readapt the plan going into next season before football season starts. We're certainly open to change that, but that's something I think gives everyone enough opportunity to really assess how things are working and then adjust before the next football season starts.
Kara, don't they also have to follow the benchmarking requirements?
Yes, annual benchmarking reports are due to the city of Evanston by June 30th of every year.
Okay.
But it would be 12 months after the occupancy permit, because you need 12 months of data to be able to submit.
Yeah, so that we discussed this Friday. I don't know whether you want to do like just a bridge year one, and then restart it, or we can talk through that and just get agreement around what and how we're delivering it. But yeah.
Right.
But by ordinance, after the first year of occupancy, then they would be required to do the 12-month calendar period, then do the following June 30th.
Correct.
Okay.
And that was it, that we had resubmittal questions after the last submission.
Have you reviewed the city's healthy building ordinance and the long-term impacts of that for the stadium?
Yes, yeah, we have.
And what's your plan for that?
As regards to particularly around our emissions, we'll be utilizing all of that baseline data from the first year to analyze that. That includes the scope 1, 2, and 3. OVG's sustainability team is really practiced in that. We've done this for emissions reporting and efficiency testing and reviews for a number of facilities, looking at future electrification opportunities, whether that be equipment or vehicles. So we're well versed and ready to get to work as we look at this.
Important to point out, as us as operators, we don't control the decisions of making those changes. We will work on an annual basis with NU reviewing the findings and having suggestions and recommendations and a plan to help them get there. But the end goal, that responsibility sits with NU, not with OBGs, the operator, but we are a critical piece there to help them understand the information and then devise a plan and a strategy to help them get there.
Yeah.
Regarding the equipment, the operations and stadium equipment being electric and hybrid, the plan talks about prioritizing those things. And so I'm curious as to how they will be prioritized. Is it a mandate? Are you reaching out like to suppliers? Is there a time frame for it? And also, is cost part of prioritizing? And so if it is, then I feel like that's a whole discussion unto itself. Like if cost comes into the feasibility of doing something or how well it's prioritized.
Yeah,
That's a
look,
conversation.
all that's under discussion, but like I said, we've gotten the vast majority of that equipment already purchased and it's all electric. There may be some small equipment that we need for specialized cleaning, like a hot water pressure washer that just an electric unit can't get it done properly. And we may have to make some decisions there. We're not there yet on that equipment. But like I said, forklifts, golf carts, gators for landscaping, all that major equipment is already procured. And there were some discussions about pricing, but we made a significant argument why we needed it. And they are all equipment, or all electric at this point.
Can I ask you a question? So I know that there is a question about the electric buses. Some people say it said in the MOU they will be utilized. The other side is where we suggested it, you know. So I don't know where you come down with it. I hope that is a priority, and I'm wondering what you're doing to get there.
Well, look, and you can see by the last report we gave, Matt and his team did extensive research and called well over 25 companies in the region to see what we could get.
Right.
It's just not available. I think what we will do is the suppliers that we do work with is as much as we can get in terms of hybrid to help supplement. That would be a priority for us. But I think an all electric fleet at this moment in time is just not feasible based on the research all done.
Do you rent them? Is that what's going? Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to buy all those
No,
buses,
no.
but it
We
was
would
sold
hire,
to the
we would hire
public.
operators
Yeah.
to come in on game day.
Because people were pretty upset about how many bus routes that were going to be going through the city and the amount of pollution and that idea that it was all going to be.
I will even offer, I know NU has offered use of their hybrid vehicles as well, which we're engaging with them
Yeah.
to make sure we can use that.
Because I think District 65 has 10 and Pace has 25. So gradually we might be able to piece it together. But I would hope that would be a priority. Thank you.
Is it okay if I ask a question? Okay. When it comes to recyclable materials, I understand the reusable constraints, safety, hygiene, all of that. But what about materials like styrofoam? And it said too that discussions with Levy, I think, are underway.
Yeah.
I would have thought those conversations would have concluded in something for this first event on October 2nd. But I guess my biggest concern is how much plastic and how much styrofoam are we putting into trash?
And again, the commitment is there. We have to year 2. None of that will be there. I think year 1, Levy has a very good sustainable program themselves and are a very conscientious, responsible group that works on it. We need to go a little bit further with them exactly, but they understand that's a goal of ours. That it's a goal of theirs as well. But to know exactly, I can't commit today exactly what's going on, but I can commit year 2, there will be none.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the lead certification process? Who was responsible for that?
That was
as
a
the
separate
consultant?
consultant hired by the project team. You remember the-
Yeah, to Mike's point, yeah, it was another consulting firm we weren't involved with. I believe it's Databased Plus.
Okay, so I guess, Dave, my request to you is there were comments that were provided by the environmental board that it sounds like have not been submitted to the team. So I would like to get those over to them so that we can get responses to those comments. Some of them have been addressed in this conversation, but there are additional comments that I would like to see a response to. And I would love to. Yeah, so it was EEB comments, Ryan Field Sustainability Plan, July 2026. I believe they were sent to Periel last week. And I think you were on that.
They were submitted to,
Was it just me and Periel?
they were submitted to you guys and they were CC'd.
Okay. If you don't have them, Dave, I will forward them to you, but I'd like to get an official response to those comments. One question, I guess, going back, and I'm sorry, what's your name?
Emily.
Hi, Emily. With the 2040 target that Northwestern has to be net zero, I would like to see a little bit more definition in the plan on how that's going to transpire and what the actions would be to get there. I understand that, I did see that there was an updated KB2 per square foot value provided in this report. But it's 140 something, I believe was the number. But that's obviously not net zero. So aside from just buying RECs at 30%, which I believe was stated earlier, I would like to actually see some of the suggestions that the team has for achieving net zero.
Yeah, I mean, as it relates to directly speaking to NU's sustainability plan and their plan to get to 2040, I'm not the best representative to speak to that. When it comes down to OVG's operations at the facility, I think we tried to reflect that through like the more specific categories we'll be targeting, where we spoke to the energy efficiency baselining, looking at the consumption, the equipment on site to reduce our scope 1 emissions down to near nil when it comes to the on-site vehicle emissions. Are there specific things you feel like, categories you feel like are missing for the?
Well, for example,
within-
like what's the facilities operations plan, we'll say. So, there's nothing stating like HVAC is on a schedule, lights are getting shut off at a certain time. So all those things contribute to energy consumption that then can be dictated as part of this plan. So, are we doing temperature resets? Are there economizer modes on the equipment, right? Like,
Yes to all of the above. And we
Sure.
work very closely with the BMS provider, and we provided the schedules to them, both lighting and temperature, based on different occupancy levels, based on different times, based on weekday, weeknight, weekends. So we are absolutely focused on that. And as Emily says, we will review those constantly and adjust and try to reduce our impact on an annual basis based on that. But we've taken all that into account and set up schedules to make sure that we are being responsible in terms of the approach.
is the actual facilities operations managed by OVG or is that by NU facilities team?
We manage it.
You manage it. Okay. So, does that mean that there's like an engineer on staff during these events, every event, that there's somebody there that can,
Yes.
if
Yes.
a compressor trips off, you
Yes.
can fix it?
Yes, we will have a chief engineer and a maintenance staff there to address any concerns.
Okay. There should be, as part of the lead and commissioning process, like an ongoing maintenance plan. I would like to see that incorporated into some of this documentation.
It's tough to do it this time. We typically will produce an operations and maintenance plan, but there's a lot of documentation we need to receive from the project team and the construction team about the specific equipment, its maintenance service schedule, its operating conditions. that we need to digest and then input it into the system to create that.
So my request then is that we have a placeholder in the report at this point for that to be entered in later. So that it's a part of the living document, right? That the sustainability plan is incorporating all of those operations components so that we have it documented. And then obviously once the commissioning process is done for the facility, then that can be added in as an exhibit.
Sure. I do have a list of other questions. I'm not sure if it's the document you were referencing.
Sure,
that
go
we had.
for it.
The first one was a list of equipment and limited materials from previous stadium were recovered for reuse. I think I addressed that one already in my first. There was a question about the grouping of native and Navatar. We have 52%. I don't have the specific breakdown other than I think we've answered this previously, so I was a little confused. There's 16 different species of shade trees, 11 of our native Navatar. So if you're looking for that to be broken out, we're going to have to do some additional follow-up with the design and project team to get specific species. But we thought we addressed it originally just when the question was type of species. The question came up about on-site solar panels not being feasible. It was studied. The weight of those units could not be supported by the canopy installed on the stadium. So, and again, these decisions were not made by OVG, but by the project team during the process, but they did do a study. They looked at the weight capacities, they looked at the generation, and it's determined because of that weight limit, it was not feasible to do that. Hand dryers was another follow. Sorry
about that. Sorry. So the canopy could not support solar panels, but aren't there other areas, possibly not even on the stadium campus, that would generate enough power or partial power for the stadium? So you looked at the canopy, but where else?
I'm going to, and I'm maybe getting ahead of myself, but we weren't part of that decision process. I don't think there's enough surface area around the stadium that it would have generated a significant impact to the overall stadium electric usage, but we did not participate in that.
Okay. So Dave, maybe my question is to you. Are there other places on the campus where solar panels could be installed? And given that I think that's part of NU's Sustain NU program anyway, is that already being looked at by the university?
Yeah, I think you're talking about two different things here, right? I mean, there's the university's broader sustainability plans versus what we're doing that applies directly to Ryan Field in the operations plan. Not that those are completely separate, but the purview of this body is to really discuss how these things apply to Ryan Field. And so, I mean, I'm not the university expert on our sustainability plans, and so I don't have much details to share with you today. But I think this group here has been very articulate in their discussion about how we're planning to make our stadium as sustainability as possible and that it complies with the Evanston ordinance. It's probably not a very artful way to answer your question.
Well, I think Laura's question more is like specific to the stadium. How do we offset the stadium consumption if it can't be done on site using the canopy because it's structurally not sound for that? And that was a decision that was made during the design phase. Then how can we find another source of solar to help offset the specific stadium impact?
And I mean, we set a goal of 30%, renewable energy procurement starting off initially. So I think as we, again, learn the building, understand its uses, we can explore more rec credits or more purchase of renewable with NU to make sure that we can lessen that impact on the environment.
So I guess, Laura, the answer to your question is they do not have a plan to install solar at this time.
The next question that I had on this list dealt with hand dryers, which we addressed. And I think the next one as well, plan doesn't explicitly roll out single-use plastics, which we talked about year 2. It absolutely will, but not year 1. Although, like I said, I think we're going to do everything in our...
For the single-use plastics, though, those would all be recyclable, correct?
I don't want to get in front of myself and commit yes, but we'll have that discussion with Levy and get back to you.
Well, I think that this committee is expecting you to commit yes to that, right? So if you're not going to commit to reusable or compostable, then everything should have to be recyclable in year one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was my clarifying question. You're saying they should be recycled. The plastic is your question in year
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for OVG exactly to commit to Levy's procurement plans and their costing model, but it's,
I mean, you're the operator. You tell them what to do. Let's, I mean, come on, like this day and age, everything should and be readily available for recyclable.
Again, we'll get with Levy. I said, we've had discussions with them and their sustainability team. They're as committed to this as we are. I just can't confirm it right now. We'll confirm it and get back to you.
In 2 weeks?
Hopefully a couple of days.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you.
That's the goal.
I'm going to channel my Periel and set deadlines. So, all right.
And then
next, we
I
can
think
go to the next
only other
topic.
question I had was there was a question about divvy stations at the stadium. Again, a decision was made a while ago before we were involved. Divvy, I guess, approached the project very late. They were looking for significant capital to install stations at the stadium, which the project did not have. And our approach to solve that issue is operating a bike valet so that people riding bikes can have a place to safely park.
Where is the closest divvy station? Do you know? There's a, at the Purple, but not at Central Metro, because they just installed the new bike parking and canopies. There's not divvy there. At
Yeah.
where?
Yeah. It's
Oh,
on the,
right.
it's on
Yeah,
the
so
west side
that's
of
where it
Green
would
Bay.
be. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I would think.
I mean, that's close enough.
If you have and there's differences, like if you have a standard bike, you need a dock. If
Right.
you have an e-bike, which there's a lot more of, our thought was, we had this conversation with staff. It's like, well, maybe next to the bike valet, we could have a section where like you can park, you can bring your e-bike and park it there. It's, obviously we wouldn't have like powered stations to charge them, but there could be an area set aside for that too.
I actually think that's a great idea, Peter, because what we don't want is people riding a divvy that they don't have to dock and then just leaving them strewn all over Central Street.
Right.
So I think that that's something we should
It wouldn't
probably
be,
plan on.
yeah, it wouldn't be in the corral, like the bike, like we don't want to be checking them in and out and things like
Right.
that. But if we had an area where it's like, hey, this is where you can park your e-divvy bike.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be there when you get out.
I think just signage, right? Like signage is, I think, the key, right? It's
Yeah.
not that
Let's say
people
let's go-
have to do it. We just don't want security having to deal with people leaving divvy bikes on the sidewalk everywhere on Central Street.
That's right. And I think, I mean, even from before, there were a couple bike racks around Ryan Field before, but most of the time you just see them attached to trees and signposts and things like that. So we just want to corral them into a single area.
That's all I had on that other document that was circulated.
I'm just giving it a quick scan. Does anyone up here have other questions, comments at the moment? There was something about a digester. Let me find that question. The gray water digester. And since that wasn't being utilized, Laura, do you want to talk about that?
To me, it actually made sense. Let me see. I got to find it first. Yeah, the gray water digester not being feasible because of like sanitary conditions, basically, because it's not used regularly, like, 5 days a week or what have you. I guess the question to mitigate that would be, is it possible or does it make sense to divert food from elsewhere, other parts of the campus, so that the gray water system could run all the time without any of the detriments that are outlined here?
Seems complicated.
Yeah, I think that would, be within the design ultimately stage of the facility. I can't speak too much to it, but yeah, I think it's complex to coordinate that across the campus. But I do know that from food waste, as Mike referenced earlier, that will be produced back of house. That will certainly be going to composting year one to divert that percentage from landfill.
All right, thanks.
Emily, you said Emily, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Just don't want to get it wrong. You did say you were planning to calculate both all scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So that will include, is Levy going to be able to provide documentation on their end to be able to support those calculations? And then what about like the transportation of people attending the events?
Yep. So for purchased goods and services, yeah, including what Levy is purchasing, we'll be working with them to collect that purchasing data to round out the report, and transportation as well for guests will be included in that process. Yep.
Kara, do you have anything else you want to add? Okay. All right.
Madam
So
Chair, it is okay to adjourn if there are no more
not
questions.
yet. No. Anyone in the back row?
Chris does have an answer on the sidewalk. I think right, Chris, you did some quick research. I forwarded an email. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Good evening, everyone. So there is an ordinance that the city has, but it seems like it's relative only to the downtown area and locations that are zoned D. And that segment along Central Street in front of between Ashland and Asbury is not. So I don't believe currently there's any restrictions on sidewalk riding within that area.
So knowing Periel, she's going to want to make an ordinance change for that. So let's make sure we capture that. Okay. So then her request before she left was that we establish some timelines for when we're going to get updates, responses, etc. And I know you want this all bowed nicely by the end of the month. So it sounds like sustainability, most of the comments should be able to be responded to, incorporated, and hopefully identified in the next couple days.
Regarding
The
plastic
recyclability of,
recyclable. Yeah,
yes.
I think that's the only takeaway, right? The remaining information, I think we sent to Kara Friday, and unless you have any follow-up on the information we gave you last week, I thought it answered all the questions that we got back from the city.
Do you agree?
Staff has only provided formal comments to the written proposal that Northwestern had provided. We have not provided formal comments back to the, correct.
To their responses.
Right. I believe we're waiting until we get the next iteration of this plan before we would respond.
So there might be more coming.
Okay, that's
So I
fine.
think
I
yeah.
What we did was take the questions, submitted them as an appendix, thinking that closed it
Yeah.
out. So if it
So
needs
no,
to be
I
something
would,
different,
I would like to see an actual update to the plan, please, at this point. And so, you've got the comments and the questions, but those need to be incorporated into the plan. And then once that update has been received, then the city will provide follow-up questions.
Okay.
Okay. So that, when can we expect
I-
that updated plan?
I mean,
Yeah, I think we'll regroup with Levy and get the answers from there, which might dictate the exact timeline. But I think within your point of within 2 weeks for a lot of these plans, I think that's certainly feasible from the
Let's target the
sustainability.
end of next week. That's a week and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Laura, what do you want to add?
I just wanted to confirm that your question about the tiers is not.
I hadn't gotten
part
to
of-
Peter yet.
Okay, but that's separate, right? That's a separate plan.
Yes.
And we're not talking about a timeline for that now.
Not yet. That was next. Peter's in the hot seat next.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's incorporated into the plan. So, I mean, I think we can try to target like into next week, a little under 2 weeks. That way you guys can see like, hey, is this address to the extent or detail that you're looking for?
That would
So
be
I have
great.
an idea of like how we want to present it, but
Okay.
yeah. And then the other things, I mean, we've talked about I mentioned like, we were going to have an updated or expanded like kind of bike information. We talked about rideshare. I think that was like really one of the bigger ones to kind of work through. I'll go through my notes. There's probably a couple other things, and there's some requests that maybe aren't necessarily in the document itself, but I think you guys asked for like example, know before you go communications. What does that look like? That's kind of like outside the plan, but we have some, yeah, we can present what that is like ready already. So
Yeah, and I think
but I think we
I
can
think it
shoot
just
for that.
needs to be think about it from the perspective of developing it sufficient for us, right?
Yeah, and we're in the process of getting our marketing communication team on the ground. So we're not there yet, but we can certainly provide you samples of similar documents they've done for other states.
Can I ask that if we get a new report that we had most recent?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I get what you're asking. She's asking that when you update the report, that it actually have the current data.
Yeah, the one, I mean, we didn't really update it before because
Right.
the only thing that was updated was a missing exhibit. So like the content otherwise was unchanged. That's why
Yeah.
we didn't want to be going through like, here's a half complete, even though we know it's not complete, and just keep throwing versions out there. So obviously, yeah, we'll have it with like whatever it is. If it's a week and a half or whatever that date is, we'll update the date. So clearly there's a difference. So you see like, oh yeah, which one is this?
Also, in the section of questions and answers that you issued, if you could go through and say, because like a lot of them say noted, and maybe sometimes they have some context. I would love to see a thing that says like updated in section 6.2, something like that, so that we can refer to the question and know where to go look for it in the plan.
Sure.
And then I think we talked earlier about the exhibits being updated with the, no parking. And then Mary has repeatedly asked that we have additional signage notifying people of parking restrictions. So that needs to be included in there as well.
Yeah. So on that topic, I guess, we've talked about having sort of like a sawhorse or something like that that shows like, hey, local traffic only or neighborhood traffic only, no parking, things like that. I guess we'll have to, maybe can you clarify the comment about other no parking signs? Because there's already no parking signs with the QR code up there. And we've talked about, I know there's been discussion like, all right, we want to make sure we have an updated list of events on there when people go to it. And then we've talked about having these sort of like gateway signs into the neighborhood. Can you expand on what you're thinking about beyond that?
Mary, your mic's not on. Yeah, I hit it.
Sorry.
Thanks.
I was thinking along the lines of like a flag, so that when people come in, that they know, and I sent a sample in the email and I'll send it to you, just as, so that when people come in, because there's so many people that come for the business district that are visitors, there's parties, all sorts of stuff going on in that whole quadrant, churches, things like that. They have no idea that every time they have to park within that 15 block radius, that they have to check a QR code. And so no one knows what 2 hours before the event is. And then if you go to it and you check it, because I do check it periodically just to see what people have to do. I live there, so I don't need to worry about it. But it'll sometimes start out on the QR code with an event that was 3 days ago. And I have to scroll all the way down to find that there's something coming up today or tomorrow. So there's just I appreciate it. There's also, I want to point out that the signs they put up with the QR codes are non-reflective. So if you're doing something in the evening or whatever, you won't even see the QR code sign. And that's a problem. And that's not your problem.
Yeah,
Just
correct me if I'm
saying.
wrong. The city put up these signs.
Yeah, no, that's not your issue. That was, I think, an oversight on whoever did the ordering on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
Mary,
what the retroreflectivity on the signs is.
Is
but-
this more targeted for the neighbors or like?
No, this is for I think, we're trying to build our economic development committee and have people come to Evanston.
Okay.
And I think when people come, they come and they'll park there and they maybe want to go to the Evanston Arts Center, or they want to go to the stores on Central, or they want to go over to, maybe it's going to be, whatever it is that they're going to, or they're getting on the Metro if they're coming, from Skokie. It's like, I don't think it's okay to have to say, put all the onus on a visitor who's coming to Evanston to know what's going on.
I have a
Northwestern.
proposed kind of idea. So hang on one second. So I guess, and Peter talked through this a little bit with me, but as we talk about the tiers, my expectation is that in the large event tier, those sawhorses are going to be there, right? Because we're really trying to detract people from even entering those side streets.
Yeah.
I think the tier that is Mary's concern is that 4 to 10,000 person event size where, and maybe we need to just put the sawhorses out for those event styles too, that then at least identify where those parking zones are, like you enter the street, you see the sign, there's no parking. And then if people still ignore the sign that's posted up by the city, then that's on them. But so we either have to have those sawhorses anytime there's a parking trigger, or
Right, okay,
the sawhorses would be for the big events, and then we have to have some sort of notification system. And I think the concern on the business district side of it is, I'm thinking of Broadway. So you turn Central, you go, so right now, because of the construction, there was like temporary additional parking on Broadway, like by the vet and the dentist office, right? So right there, people are able to park, but then you go like 3 spots north and you could be getting a $125 parking ticket. So I think this is very specific,
Right,
but
I think
can
as
I
we
just make a comment real fast?
Yeah.
Again, I would just caution us from making too many specific changes now.
Right.
Because there are just too many either known unknowns or unknown unknowns that we'll have to adjust for. And so instead of trying to solve every problem today, and like I understand the concerns of the business district, and we certainly are sympathetic to that, like let's just prioritize what we're trying to do. And we talked about that initially. We talked about that many times at previous meetings, that we're trying to ultimately move people out of this area as quickly as possible as the number one priority. That's kind of inconsistent with, some of the various recommendations that have been made here today. And so we're trying to balance those things. So I would really caution us on that level of specific detail that we're requesting to be incorporated into the first draft of the plan. Like, we know that we're going to come back after the first game or two. We'll assess what we've learned. We'll make changes and adjustments if necessary. But I don't know. I just worry, like, now we're talking about where to put sawhorses and signage and trying to drive traffic to the local business district. There are just things we got to get right first that would take priority over that.
I will say, I hear what you're saying because you want to stay up here. But the reality is these local businesses are struggling. And like I saw, just so when my household got 3, we were having a picnic. I didn't check to see the events. I don't check every day to see what's going on at Northwestern. I'm just one person. But we were having a barbecue, and I guess there was a graduation. There was no way of knowing it. And then when the kids came, it was evident that, I'm like, oh God, you got to get a yellow pass. And before they could even, because they started at 4, and it's like 2 hours before the event, which was at 6 or whatever. So you're coming to Evanston, you have to think about when is the event? How do I know what time the event starts? All I'm asking is for specificity. I'm not asking to get granular on it, but I don't. And then this little old lady coming back from Central Street with a little bag in her hand, clearly hadn't been there, but maybe 15 minutes, had a $125 ticket. Now, maybe she had just gone up to Hune or something over there. But the point is I doubt that woman's coming back to Central Street. And that's why I want to work through that, because there's a lot of people who have people coming to visit them and they may not know.
And I think you're right, Mary. And I think that we just have to establish, once that parking threshold hits, that we need some sort of signage. And whether it's the sawhorse or a flag, I think you guys can noodle through that. But I agree that there's, when the parking restrictions are in place, there has to be some sort of communication. And if we want to just use the sawhorses, that makes sense because that's at the entry point of the neighborhood. And that is some sort of sign that says parking restrictions are in place. And that should hopefully be the reminder. So let's just leave
and
it.
the text that you sent out, Dave, right? For what was that? A graduation for graduations? I know for me, Mary, definitely hear you on the business side of things and the business district, specifically Central Street. But I know our neighborhood struggles with, and you and I have spoken about this, like we got so specific that like now people are upset. The pendulum swung way too far. And now neighborhood guests are getting fined, sort of left and right because someone didn't go to a QR code. And I actually think this is an opportunity for the city. This isn't a Northwestern Ryan Field thing, but Luke, like they just used to come put those pieces of paper. Like, I think we need to admit to ourselves that not everyone is super tech savvy yet. And there's a little bit of a learning curve. So we just need to keep doing the pieces of paper in the neighborhood and have you continue to sign out for that tier, Fiona. Maybe it's the 4,000 to 10,000 tier. I think that text message was really effective. And I know appreciated by our neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm just, again, my point is let's just be mindful of the second order effects of these changes that we're recommending, right? I mean, there are potentially unintended consequences. Now, if you're talking about simply communicating things, that's not that complicated, right? Like if you want us to add some footnote about, make sure you patronize the local restaurants, I think we can do that. But if you're talking about putting structures up that restrict certain individuals from accessing streets and signage, I just think we need to be mindful of, like what are some of the unintended consequences of those decisions? That's all. I'm not saying.
What sort of unintended consequence would be? I just don't understand what the unintended.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you put a sawhorse on a certain street based on how many individuals are coming to an area, if it's a community movie night, for example, and folks can't make a turn on a certain street or whatever, that might just not seem like a very inviting community, right? For folks that don't live in the area. So it's also like, what message are you sending by putting up restrictions on individuals going down certain streets? That's just one example I came up with off the top of my head. Like I said, I don't know, but I would just say, because when you're doing these things, it also presents your community in a certain way. Right. Like, for example, if you restrict parking for graduation ceremonies and now, families that are coming to Evanston to celebrate one of the most memorable moments of their life now has to leave with a $125 ticket. It's unlikely those people are going to come back to Central Street to shop.
Yeah.
So-
I think we should table this. It's 8:30. I think there's more conversations that we could have as a smaller committee with Luke and Periel at another time. I do think though that you should take the note back about just when the parking restrictions are triggered, that there needs to be that signage included in some capacity. I'll let you figure that out.
And I think this is like this is a good example of one of those things where, I know it was mentioned 4,000 is the threshold of neighborhood parking, and neighborhood parking is usually established for a reason, but there's always trade-offs to every decision. And maybe we decide later, it's like, all right, let's look at the types of events. Maybe it's 5,000. Maybe
Sure.
it's, and so
That's why I
a
just
good
think if
example.
we
So
just
we can
say
have that
like
in here now,
when parking
and then we'll
restrictions
have
are
to
in
look at
place, then this
Yeah.
happens. And then we can determine when as a committee that
I'm
those
essentially
restrictions
thinking
happen.
this is sort of, here's your tiers, here's your attendance thresholds, here's the types of events that fit within those thresholds. And some events will fit maybe in multiple thresholds, for example, a community event. And then sort of like, here's a list of all the different measures and sort of a matrix, what applies, what does not apply. And I think even within those, as I'm starting to like jot these all down, there's somewhere like it might flex in that 4,000 to 10,000 range. Like you're saying, some community events might require more attention than other community events, things like that. So trying to figure out how to like demonstrate that where in the pre-event coordination before every event, it's like, all right, here's the measures that apply to this one, but maybe not this one, they'll have to do that. So
One thing, that's great. Thank you. One thing that I know didn't get discussed tonight that Periel mentioned in a previous meeting was the employee parking zones, or like how we're going to accommodate if there are parking restrictions like what areas they can park that is not available to NU for parking?
Do you
remember?
mean business employees?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Do you remember that conversation, like the
Yeah.
first meeting we had?
I think we talked about it at some point about whether you can reserve certain spaces for
I think that
businesses. And
lot,
yeah.
Because
I think Poplar was talked about as a.
It's that lot that I proposed as Plan B to rideshare pickup.
Yeah.
no, but there was the lot that's across from like Walsh and Treat, the one that's the west parking lot by Independence Park. Is that, that's not identified for parking, right?
Which one?
The parking lot that's by Independence Park, that's across from like Walsh Natural
Like
and
foodstuffs,
Treat
like
and
that lot.
foodstuffs.
I think
Yeah.
it's just a public parking lot.
Okay,
and
but I
Well,
think
it's partly public and partly spots for the people who live in
the
those
apartments next door, and I think
yeah.
there are time restrictions
It's
there
not all
too.
public.
Like it's not I believe
I
there's
think,
time
didn't you
restrictions.
tell me that they have signs that say no event parking all the
Yes.
time in that lot?
Right. That's right.
Yeah, there's no
and I
tailgating
think
there.
you don't, I think there might be like time restrictions too. So it's not
Okay.
like conducive to attending one of these
I'll
events.
table this and I'll just send a note to Perriel that says, hey, if we need to come back to this, we can figure it out later. So that way it's not on your plate for now.
Yeah. I think I do remember in some of the discussions, like, well, how many businesses are we talking about? And how many people,
Yeah.
there was a lot of that discussion. So.
Okay. Anything final, Laura?
One other, this is a question really for you, I think, Fiona. Are we looking for a drop dead date for this to be approved prior to October 2nd? Like, is there a drop dead that we have to adhere to?
So for a while now, I've felt that the end of August really needs to be drop dead. I think for everyone's benefit, I don't think it's going to be good for us to be tinkering with plans, on a significant level 2 weeks before the first football game. So
Okay.
I'd like to see all three plans in final shape by the end of August for approval.
Okay. Thank you.
So if we've requested that all the plans be updated by the 14th, which is next Friday, Luke, are you thinking that then, because I know Kara said she wants to be able to provide feedback, the environmental board and Jim will want to provide feedback. If that feedback is provided the week of the 17th, are we targeting another meeting like 3 weeks from now, like the 25th or 26th?
Yeah, I was thinking about, I think Monday is the 31st, right?
Right.
So, I don't know if we want to do something the second half of the week of the 24th. So we're doing final wrap up 26th, 27th, 28th, something in there.
Yeah.
And then we're putting a bow on this on Monday, the 31st.
Okay. Does Perriel need to coordinate that meeting or you?
No, I can help coordinate that.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So then for those in the room that anticipate providing feedback, your feedback would be expected to be provided the week of the 17th, due by the 21st, so that we can then meet the following week. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I